reports on Trump's latest attacks on academia and on college students. Harvard suing, accusing Trump of a campaign of retribution. That's pretty obvious. What do you think? And I'm still Jim Browdy, imitating Marjorie Egan. She'll be here. Then it's Live Music Friday ahead of the Campfire Festival at Club Passim this weekend at Harvard Square. Jessye DeSilva performs for us here at the library, and we hear from her and Passim Managing Director Matt Smith. It's all ahead on the first hour of BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Corva Coleman. President Trump is again threatening to impose new tariffs. Writing online, he threatened to impose steep levies on goods from the European Union, as well as on Apple for making iPhones overseas. NPR's Danielle Kurtzleben has more.
President Trump wrote that trade discussions with the EU were going nowhere. He added that therefore, quote, I am recommending a straight 50% tariff on the European Union starting on June 1st, 2025. As the president has previously imposed tariffs via executive actions, it is unclear what he meant when he said he was recommending new tariffs. In early April, Trump announced 20% tariffs on EU goods as part of a wave of higher tariffs on most countries. He later pulled those back, and the EU rate currently stands at 10%. Trump, in a separate post, said that he has told Apple CEO Tim Cook that iPhones have to be manufactured in the United States. If not, Trump added, Apple would have to pay a tariff of 25%. Danielle Kurtzleben, NPR News, the White House.
Harvard University has sued the Trump administration for a second time. NPR's Alyssa Nadworny reports this comes a day after the Department of Homeland Security said it would block international students from attending the university.
In the lawsuit, the university accused the Trump administration of retaliating against Harvard for exercising its First Amendment rights. The lawsuit follows a letter sent Thursday by Kristi Noem, the Secretary of Homeland Security. In it, she says the administration is terminating Harvard's student exchange certification, which means the school can no longer sponsor student visas, impacting new students and currently enrolled international students. Noem says the administration is holding Harvard accountable for, quote, fostering violence, anti-Semitism, and coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party. The university has nearly 7,000 international students, roughly 1/4 of the student body. Alyssa Nadworny, NPR News.
Ukraine says the first stage of a massive prisoner exchange is underway. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky says nearly 400 Ukrainian troops held by Russia have been exchanged today, and more are coming. NPR's Joanna Kakissis reports from Ukraine, where families of captured troops are holding out hope.
At the request of Ukrainian authorities, who cite security reasons, NPR is not disclosing the location where the families are waiting. Katya Koval weeps as she holds a banner emblazoned with an image of her husband, Grigori, a soldier.
He has been in the captivity since December 7th, 2023. I hope he will be exchanged today.
1,000 Ukrainian POWs are expected to come home if the exchange happens as planned. Joanna Kakissis, NPR News.
On Wall Street, the Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 324 points. The Nasdaq is down more than 200 points. This is NPR.
Good morning. With the latest from the GBH newsroom, I'm Craig Lamolt. Roughly 80 protesters and residents met in Milton on Thursday to rally for justice and the legacy of George Floyd as the 5th anniversary of his murder approaches. Speakers at the rally noted that 5 years after that, racial justice has not progressed as much as they'd hoped or expected. Sharon Bilodeau of Dorchester looked at around at signs hanging on the church walls listing the names of black people killed by police.
I'm noticing the names of people killed in September of 2024, and I stopped paying attention to the people dying at the hands of police, and that violence we need other ways. It's horrendous.
While black people are only 13% of the population, they still make up 22% of fatal police shootings in the U.S., according to the NAACP. Parents vented their frustration at Brookline's school committee last night over the district's budget woes. This follows the release of an audit that partly blamed poor management for an $8 million deficit in next year's budget. In public comment, Kevin Walton said a proposed consolidation of classrooms would directly impact his son and that trust in the schools was eroding.
Like many families, we moved to Brookline for the public schools. But it seems like in the last couple of years, it's been in a free fall. There's a real question I want to put to you tonight. Where is your oversight? Where is the leadership from this school committee?
The school committee also voted against accepting a $190,000 grant from the Brookline Community Foundation to keep open the Office of Educational Equity for 1 year. In the forecast, clouds and some showers today. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include Capital One with the Capital One Saver Card. What's in your wallet? Terms apply. Details at CapitalOne.com. And the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation at macfound.org.
I'm Jim Browdy, ahead on Hour 2. You're listening to BPR. We're at the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. I'm Jim Browdy. Marjorie Egan, pretty obviously, is a couple of minutes late, but she'll be here. We are broadcasting a best of show on the holiday on Monday. We're back live on Tuesday. On Tuesday, we'll talk with the president of Assumption University, Greg Wiener. Mayor Wu will join us on Wednesday for an hour here at the library. The confrontation between Donald Trump and Harvard University escalated yesterday when the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kristi Noem, that noted habeas corpus scholar, decided to block the university's ability to enroll any international students, ordering existing international students at the university to transfer or lose their legal status to be in this country. Dog killer Noem accused Harvard of, quote, fostering violence, anti-Semitism, and coordinating with the Chinese Communist Party on its campus. As you know, already Harvard has sued the Trump administration over this, arguing the administration's actions are illegal and unconstitutional. Caught in the crosshairs of the lawsuits, the letters, the posturing, and the edicts, actual students. In a few moments, we're going to open the phone and text lines at 877-301-8970 to hear from you on all this. But first, joining us via phone, 2 Harvard international students. Zooming in from Tokyo, we're joined by Abdullah Shahid Sial. He is in the class of 27, a rising junior studying applied mathematics and economics. He is also student body co-president and an international student from Pakistan. Leo Gerdén is the class of 25, just days away from graduation, studying economics and government concentration, an international student from Sweden. We spoke to both of them just minutes before showtime. Leo, Abdullah, I really appreciate you joining me this morning.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for having us.
You know, I'm guessing both of you guys knew something like this was coming. But Abdullah, starting with you, what was your immediate reaction when you heard about the Noem letter?
So I was on a 13-hour long flight, and as soon as I landed, I got all of these texts from my friends. They're like, "Oh, I'm so sorry for what happened, and you have my support." And I was very confused in the beginning. My initial reaction was, maybe something happened with the India-Pakistan war again. But after checking through my inbox, I quickly realized that this was part of the SCBP status, which is which provides the university the ability to enroll international students has been revoked. My initial reaction obviously was we expected this to happen at some point. We didn't expect it to happen this early on. And we were obviously pretty saddened by the fact that since I'd left campus, we couldn't do any student organizing, which we had done in the past. And that was a big bummer. But obviously, we've been trying to do everything outside of that. But again, I would say that this came as a shock to many. And on top of that, it has caused a state of pure havoc for so many of these 18, 19, and 20-year-olds who are here alone, have no family members in this country.
War of a different kind, I guess you'd say. Leo, what was your initial reaction?
I think it's just tragic. I think it's dehumanizing in a way because we're essentially being used as poker chips in a battle between the White House and Harvard because Trump essentially wants to install himself as the provost of this university. He wants to dictate what classes we can take, what students can be admitted, what professors should be fired, and we're sort of caught in the crossfire in all of this. And the result is that people's dream of studying at this institution and staying in America is just shattered. I think it's extremely tragic.
Leo, you're scheduled to graduate next week. I think your mother, I read in the Globe, and your grandmother are here. Do you expect to graduate, or you just don't even know?
Hopefully I will be able to, and I hope that my mom and my grandma, who haven't been able to come to campus yet, can come and visit me. But most of all, it will be a very different commencement, because just knowing that I'm leaving a place that might not look the same next semester, I think it's just horrible. Because what makes Harvard so great is its people. It's not its history or its legacy or anything like that. It's the fact that it can bring together the best and the brightest from around the world, and we meet in the same classrooms, in the same dining halls, but that might not be the case anymore. And yeah, it feels tragic.
Abdullah, speaking of next year, are you convinced you'll be able to return next year? And if you can, do you even want to return to Harvard with this kind of thing hanging over your head?
That's a great question. So number one, just to echo what Leo said, I think Harvard has this ability to gather the best and brightest, not just from within the United States, because I don't think anyone believes that all the talented people just happen to be born within the geographical boundaries of the United States.
Right.
They happen to be born very randomly everywhere in the world. And Harvard has the ability to do that. And obviously, it's a massive, massive privilege for us to be accepted to this place and finally study. So I would obviously want to come as much as possible. But at the same point in time, we also need to realize that these 6,000-7,000 international students also have full entire stories of their own. They are not just the pawns which political pawns which the Trump administration wants us to believe. They have all of their own individual stories, and them being dehumanized and disrespected in this manner, where they're being thrown from Harvard's administration to the Trump administration and being used as quote unquote collateral. I think that entire narrative just makes every single international feels extremely unwelcome here. So I'm not sure what the next few months look like, but I definitely don't feel welcome by the federal government at the moment.
We're talking to two international students at Harvard, one from Pakistan and one from Sweden. Leo, you wrote a piece in the Crimson, I think it was about a month or so ago. You referenced Rumeysa Ozturk, who we obviously have talked about a lot, and we all saw her snatched off the streets of Somerville by masked people and others. And you talked about how that and other things have created an atmosphere of fear where people don't want to speak up for fear of that kind of retaliation. But you've decided to speak up anyway, despite that threat. Why? Leo, you still with us? We may have lost Leo. We'll get back to Leo in a second. Abdullah, I know Harvard student body is not a monolith, but as the co-president of the student body, would you say there's a consensus? I mean, it seems to me if Alan Garber, the president, were willing to give up disciplinary records, which the Trump administration has requested, that this thing might be settled. Is the bulk of the student body, in your estimation, sticking together, as you mentioned in a Crimson piece, and in opposition to disclosing this kind of information?
That's also a pretty good question. I do definitely think that Harvard in general is a very left-leaning place where students generally vote Democrat. But I have many friends who also who happen to vote Republican in this past election. Some really close friends of mine, and even they, in the overwhelming majority, actually all of my friends who voted Republican when this entire crackdown began. I had conversations with all of them. They came up and they were like, "Oh, I'm really sorry that this is happening to you. Whatever we stood for, we at least didn't think that they will come for our own neighbors, for our friends, for people we call family, and try to send them to quote unquote where they came from." Because I mean, they fully understand how 18, 19, 20-year-olds can't be national security threats to the point where they need to be picked up and then kicked out of the university. So I would say that this is at this point the almost the entire student body of if not the entirety of it is perhaps on our side.
Says don't give up, don't disclose the information.
That's precisely that's mostly correct.
Leo, you're back, correct? I'm sorry we lost you there for a second.
I accidentally, it was definitely my fault. I had someone else calling and I hung up on
We're not
you
going to
instead of
blame
them.
you for it. It's okay. We're glad you're back. What I was asking, I read your piece in the Crimson from last month or whenever it was, and you were talking about, obviously, the case of Ozturk from Tufts, who we all saw dragged off the streets in Somerville, and the fear that another action like that has created in the minds of a lot of international students and caused many of them, because of the chilling effect, not to speak out. You've decided to do it anyway. Why?
I think that the moment we're in right now is so important. Literally, the fight over democracy is being fought on this campus right now because institutions in this country have been able to stand up for their own independence, like Harvard, and that's what we're going to keep fighting for. And it would go against every principle in my body to not stand up for my peers in this moment.
Last thing for both of you, gentlemen. Leo, we'll start with you, and then Abdullah. When you go home, when you're back in Sweden, when you're back in Pakistan, or today in Tokyo, Abdullah, if a high school kid, a high school senior says to you, I'm thinking of applying to college in the United States, what advice would you give him or her or them, starting with you, Leo?
I think it's incredibly tough. It would break my heart to advise someone not to come here because I have had incredible 4 years at Harvard and in the United States. But on the other hand, I understand why people are worried. I mean, if you're not guaranteed to be able to even finish your degree, you might be sent home sometime because Trump is battling against your university, or even you're put in a detention center because you have spoken up on some issue that Trump doesn't agree on. I do fully understand why people have a hard time accepting that risk.
Abdullah, what would you tell someone, again, today in Tokyo or back home in Pakistan?
Yeah, you're putting me in a pretty tough spot here. The 2 years I've spent, they have perhaps been the most transformative 2 years I've had in my life. But at the same time, these 2 years were the most transformative precisely because I happened to engage not just with the brightest within the US, but also from all over the world. And Harvard, just as people have mentioned earlier, Harvard is hard because it has the ability to attract excellence from across the globe, not just from one particular country. And I doubt Harvard will be able to retain its image and its excellence if it is restricted in terms of how many where it can accept students from. In that case, obviously, Harvard won't remain the fantastic, beautiful, and sought-after place that it is at the moment. So that if I had to advise someone, even within the U.S., that if you have to choose between Harvard and another place, I would ask them to think about it very cautiously, given these circumstances. But yeah, I do at the same point in time. Right now, Harvard is perhaps one of the best places you can be at for higher education in general.
Well, Harvard is lucky to have you, gentlemen. And Leo, I really hope you graduate next week. And Abdullah, I hope you're back in Cambridge next year. Gentlemen, thanks for your time. Really appreciate it. And lots of luck to you both.
Thank you so much for having us.
We're speaking to Abdullah Shahid Sial. He's calling in from Tokyo. He's an international student from Pakistan, class 27. Leo Gerdén is scheduled to graduate next week. He's from Sweden. After a quick break, we're continuing this conversation around the latest Trump outrage, the latest attack on Harvard, opening up phone and text lines for your reactions. Stick around. You're listening to BPR 89.7 GBH live at the library. And guess who's back? Marjorie is here.
In 2020, George Floyd's murder by a police officer in Minnesota ignited a global reckoning with racism and police brutality. 5 years later, we look at its impact worldwide.
There are still families dealing with horrendousness of losing loved ones to police violence.
That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And the Boston Speakers Series, announcing its 2025-2026 season at Symphony Hall for 7 evenings, featuring Tipping Point author Malcolm Gladwell, Dr. Anthony Fauci, Ken Burns, and former National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster. BostonSpeakers.org. And Wheelock Family Theater, presenting the Broadway musical The Prom, a joyful celebration of the power of being yourself. told through humor, heart, and songs. Now through June 8th. WheelockFamilyTheater.org.
Welcome back to BPR. I'm Jim Browdy. Marjorie Egan has arrived. Welcome, Marjorie. An anonymous texter said, what, was the bus lane flooded this morning?
True. They sabotaged me, Jim. There were too many buses in Huntington Avenue, and it took me forever to get here.
I shouldn't have laughed that hard, but it's pretty good. We're live. Welcome back. I'm glad you're here. Live at the library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're on tape for Memorial Day, but with the best of some great guests that day. Tuesday, we're back at the library with the president of Assumption University, Greg Weiner. And Wednesday, Mayor Wu joins us for an hour of Ask the Mayor right here at the library. You just heard a conversation with two terrific young international students at Harvard, Leo and Abdullah. Now it's your chance to weigh in. Give us a buzz at 877-301-8970. What was your reaction when you heard the news? Were you surprised to learn the president would or could even attempt such a sadistic move? It's one thing to go after the institution. It's nothing. There's 7,000 international students at Harvard. What do you make of this? 877-301-8970. What do you make of this?
What do I make of it?
Yes.
It's heartbreaking. I mean, it's like the president is trying to take away the best of what America is all about. He's certainly taken away the best of what Massachusetts is all about because, I was thinking about how when COVID happened, Americans got the mRNA vaccine. We got it first, the COVID vaccine. Why do you think we got it first? Because it was made here, right? Made over in Cambridge, really.
It was.
Maybe the next time it'll be made in China, since China is now offering free room and board and tuition to all these kids if they want to come there and go to school for free. I was thinking about, Joe Biden, who's got a cancer that's moved to his bones. We've read how if he had gotten this diagnosis 5 years ago, he'd be a dead man walking, because the research that produced those advances in cancer, a lot of that cancer research happens right here.
NIH funded, federally funded
NIH funding. So I think this is just a tragedy, because you may think, oh, Harvard's too leftist and Harvard's too elitist and all that. Well, the best brains from around the world come to go to the Harvards and the Yales and the Stanfords, and they're not going to come anymore. They're not going to come to any of these schools because they're be afraid of what happens to them. And you look at who leads so many companies. You look at who's when you go to the Brigham or the Mass General, where these doctors come from, a lot of them are not Americans. So we're shooting ourselves in the foot, as a Globe editorial said, and it's like, we're an authoritarian government at this point, I would say.
And by the way, I feel the same way you're describing, even about going after the institution, this anti-Semitism thing. We've said it 1,000 times. If there's anybody who doesn't care about anti-Semitism, it's a guy who has dinner with white supremacists, the president of the United States. It's ridiculous. But even if you want to take out retribution on the institution, which is unconscionable in a democracy, taking it out on these 7,000 kids. Leo, the young guy from Sweden, his graduation is a few days from now.
Right.
You heard him say his mother and his grandmother haven't been here before coming. He doesn't know if he's going to graduate. Abdullah is the co-president of the student body, doesn't know if he's going to be back. So your point is really important, I think. It's not just incredibly unkind and cruel to these young people who decided to come here. It is so bad for the economy that Donald Trump says he cares about so much because of what big brains from other countries contribute to this country. It is incredible.
Well, when you think about it, somebody said this, I'm stealing their line, I forget who said it, but the higher education, we may have our doubts about K through 12 in the United States of America, but nobody doubts that we have the best higher education in the world. So it's like, and it's an admirable, organization, all these schools. It's like he's going after the things that make us best and trying to hurt us, whether it's pollution or all these terrible things he's going to do to Medicaid and Medicare and all that kind of stuff. It's like I feel like Al Capone is running the country.
Before we get to the calls, Paula from Hingham, I'm just going to read the first line. Please stop acting like every presidential decree is legal. One, we've made it clear that we think most are illegal. And Paula, I'd say back to you, please stop acting that because you think they're illegal, it's going to rescue these students. The reality is, if it was blatantly illegal, By the time a court, we've discussed this a lot, makes that determination, what's that kid who is contemplating coming to the United States going to do? What does Abdullah do about where he goes in September? What happens to Leo's graduation? I mean, really, the illegality of a rogue president is important to state, but it doesn't cure the problem, because despite our conversation with Judge Gerdén, for whom I have the utmost respect the other day, on a lot of fronts, particularly people coming from other countries, legally or otherwise, the courts are slow.
And one last thing.
Man.
It isn't just the Harvards and the Yales that have all these international students. A lot of schools have international students. And one of the reasons they like international students is that because they pay full freight, which enables schools to give lesser bills to people that are from the United States of America. So if you think college is expensive now, it's going to be even more expensive, because this is going to be a lot of problems for a lot of schools without the international brand of a Harvard or Yale or Stanford or Princeton or any of these schools, and your tuition is going to go up.
Paul and Wellesley, you're first. Thank you much for calling. We appreciate it. Welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call.
Of course.
I should probably say that I'm actually a Harvard graduate, and I've been encouraging the school to resist these efforts. But the main point I wanted to offer to you is that this is much more than Trump's fragile ego and his determination to try to humiliate and destroy this institution, which is one of the ones that our nation has had for many years. We all know that. But the principle of academic freedom is what's at stake here.
Totally.
What they're trying to do is take control of the total operation of the university. And you can't do that in a society, in a free society where we depend upon the independence and the honest investigations, scholarly research that is what has produced the scientific advances that have benefited millions of Americans for centuries. Well, 2 centuries at least.
Well, Paul, I don't know if you heard Leo Gerdén a couple of minutes ago, the young kid from Sweden. He said, and I thought he said it beautifully, the same thing you're saying, Trump wants to be the provost of Harvard University. Well, and you nailed it, and so did he, and thank you for your call. We appreciate it.
One of the demands from Kristi Noem, the rather despicable person that runs the Department of
Homeland Security.
Thank you, Homeland Security. She wants Harvard to turn over proof of every student visa holders maintaining a minimum required course load. So she wants them to report on which courses and how many courses all these students are taking. I mean,
provost.
Yeah, isn't that like insane? And disciplinary records for any student visa holder who's been punished for threatening, participating in protests. So everybody that participated in a protest about Gaza, and the protests about Gaza are probably not going to go away given how things are going.
How rich also, as I suggested, how rich that a woman who doesn't know what habeas corpus means is explaining the law to the leaders of Harvard and its students. Lydia in Sutton, welcome to the show. Hi.
Hi, Jim and Marjorie.
Hey.
First time, long time. I love the show.
You're very nice. Thank you. Glad to have you.
There, so many problems, so many issues with this move, and honestly, it's not surprising at all that Trump is doing this. But what I wanted to say, just on a more personal level, I was an international student years ago when I came to the U.S. And I met my husband in college, and we've been together ever since. We now have 2 kids, and I got my first job out of college. I've worked and contributed and paid taxes to this country, and none of that would have happened if I didn't have the opportunity to be here and become a U.S. citizen. So just really breaks my heart to think that this is something that might be taken away from people, and I just hope it doesn't stick.
Lydia, thank you.
Harvard fights it.
It sounds like they're going to, and thank you for your contribution to discussion. You know what I mention every day?
What?
Fear.
Yeah.
While these things are resolved, how about you? How about if you're not one of the outspoken students like Abdullah and Leo? You're one of the other 68 or 6,900. You don't know what you're doing tomorrow. A quarter of them don't know if they're graduating. The others don't know if they're coming back next. I mean, it's just unconscionably cruel.
I'm not sure if it was Abdullah or Leo who said you fear that you're going to be shipped off to some hellhole in some detention center, a prison. And the thing that's so scary too is that, I mean, you heard one of them say people that his friends that voted for Trump didn't think this was going to happen to them. Well, we're all kind of thinking that. Well, this isn't going to happen to us because we're American citizens. Well, Trump said, he thinks that American citizens could get shipped off without due process to these prisons too. So you wonder how long it's going to be before criticism of Trump for an American citizen winds them up in some sort of very bad place. I mean, it could be you and me, Jim. It could be next.
Well, we'll see which one. In any case, capitulation, just for a second. There's a wonderful point made by somebody on CNN last night, which I'm embarrassed I hadn't thought about, is these capitulating law firms, the big four, the small four, that have agreed to provide $1 billion, $950 million in free legal services to causes Trump cares about. So far, we know he said he wants them to represent the coal miners, the coal operators, to reopen the coal mines.
So the air could be more polluted
and
for
you
us
know
all.
what Tubin or somebody said last night on CNN? They're going to end up representing the Trump administration against Harvard. And by the way, how many of these big shots at these big law firms went to Harvard or Yale or that sort of thing? They're really being hoisted on their own cowardly petards, and I couldn't be happier.
Didn't you mention that Apple has been gone after, even after Tim Cook from Apple gave all that money to Trump for his
$1 million
inauguration?
for the inauguration, and he shows up and he's getting screwed on the tariffs today.
Well, that's the other thing, too. I mean, has Colombia gotten their $400 million
They have not
back yet?
that I
mean,
know
they
of.
capitulated to get the $400 million back. That was weeks and weeks ago. They haven't gotten it back. This is a lot of people are confused about this, that Trump can do things that are unlawful. Here's somebody else. Am I missing something? The president can't just declare Harvard can't admit anyone outside the U.S., period, full stop. Can you explain? Well, they can take away their ability to get the visas to come here, and that may be unlawful. But as you said, by the time that winds its way through the courts, it will be months, if maybe longer.
And by the way, it probably is illegal, even though he has the right to do it.
A lot of the stuff
There's no
he
due
does
process
is
here.
illegal.
It's arbitrary and capricious, which generally is a standard that you have to satisfy. But as both of us have said, it could be a while. Now, hopefully they get an injunction tomorrow. I don't know.
But that's important because probably half the stuff he's done is illegal. He just does it, and then he waits for the courts to sue, and then he tries to persuade the Supreme Court to agree with him.
Or then he just ignores the courts.
And then he just ignores the courts. So that's why I said, when do we say we have an authoritarian government? I think it's here. I mean, if people are afraid to speak out against the government, certainly foreign people are, but I think a lot of Americans are too. What is that? It was a story in the Globe today about people that came and became American citizens, and they interviewed people about why they wanted to become American citizens. It was a very uplifting story, except that one of them said, here you can go protest, you're not going to get arrested. That's why I said, well, I don't know. I don't think that's true anymore. Demetra in the car, thank you for calling.
Hi there.
Hi, long time, and I love your show.
Thank you.
So I just listened to Leo and Abdullah, who were wonderful.
They were wonderful.
But I hope but be amused that at the school with the best and brightest all around the world, there was a very large number of Republican kids who actually thought Trump wasn't going to come for them. So it seems to me that we're in a place in this country, we've effed around, and now we're going to find out. And that's what it's going to take for us to learn that we really don't like living in a place that isn't a democracy. So I really hope that those young Republican leaders of the future have learned a lesson and will work really hard to support their university and the country in which they're getting this great education.
Well said, Demetra. Thank you for your call. We appreciate it. 877-301-8970.
Well, did anybody think this was going to happen? Did anybody think he was going to stop research for children's cancer or children's diseases? I don't think this was debated in the election between him and Kamala Harris. I don't think we talked about coming and shutting down those kinds of things. The COVID vaccine that RFK is now saying, well, maybe people under 65 don't really need the COVID vaccine, and cutting down research on COVID because COVID's yesterday. Is COVID yesterday? Thousands of people have long-term COVID. So no research on that because the president wants to pretend COVID didn't happen. I mean, it's like we're down the rabbit hole in Alice in Wonderland. Jane from Concord, thank you for calling.
Hi, Jane.
Hi, guys.
I actually had a cousin who was a dentist in another country who came to do a postdoc. And imagine that not only was he paying tuition, but he was giving up his professional salary in order to be a grad student. And then to find out, if you found out that you couldn't continue your studies, who's going to reimburse people for those costs? Who's going to reimburse them for the time and their tuition? And also there's a little bit of a stereotype that all foreign students are rich, but there are some who are not. I have a friend who's a contact for African students who are not rich at all. And this would be a total disaster in their lives to be told you have to go home.
Well, everything you said, I agree with. And the only thing I'd add to it, which I guess is implicit in what you're saying, they didn't do anything wrong. I mean, even if you accept the totally made-up argument that Trump is using against places like Harvard, there's no argument against these kids. What did they do? What did the 6,900 or 6,800 do that merits them? And by the way, I'm going to use a word that people may merits them being expelled from Harvard. That's what this thing does. It expels them from Harvard. If they can find another place to transfer to, or even if they want to transfer to another American university, fine. Otherwise, they're expelled to their home country. Jane, thanks for the call.
Wasn't Abdullah from Pakistan?
Pakistan.
Well, we have a Trumpster, a texter, who says, Pakistan is a terrorist sporting country and harbored bin Laden. Go Trump.
That's nice. No, it's
so
good.
I think you're right, sir, that I think this young man should be blamed for what the leadership of his country did, just like you should be blamed for what Donald Trump is doing right now. It's your fault. So get out of town. Let's go to Mark from Fall River. Thank you for calling.
Hi, Mark. Hello.
Hi, Jim Marjorie. First time, long time.
Love that.
As a kid from Dorchester, was the first in his family to go to UMass Boston. And I think it's a sad state of affairs that we're going to have what America is known for. Our brain trust is going to be going to other countries that don't look favorable upon us. And this mental midget, it's going to destroy what America is known for, like in tech and medicine. It's just a very sad state of affairs. And I hope we can blame guy come midterms and try to get out there and vote. Period.
Well, let's hope we make it that far. Mark, thanks for your first call. We appreciate it.
Isn't Trump always whining that other countries aren't?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry, Mark. Isn't Trump always whining that other countries aren't sending their best and brightest? Isn't that what he says he wants? Well, they're here in the colleges and universities that he's attacking.
Well, in our two more things, I'm going to speak about that scam of a dinner that Trump had last night for the crypto purchasers who wanted to influence him.
The bribery dinner?
The highest level crypto purchaser is a Chinese billionaire. He bought $40 million of Trump crypto, so Trump benefited a lot. Guess where he went to college?
Harvard?
University of Pennsylvania.
Oh, University of Pennsylvania.
So if Trump had his way...
Oh, that's your alma mater and Trump's.
His $40 million man would not even have been here to begin with, but obviously that means nothing as long as Trump gets the cash.
Here's Carol from Ipswich who says, this whole situation with Harvard makes me more than angry. What makes me most angry is there's nothing anybody can do about it that will stop it. No way to stop the president from continuing. I am very glad Harvard is standing up to him, but I don't see any solution to this, and I don't see how Americans can stop this either. Congress...
I don't agree with that. Someone said this to us the other day. It might have been Doris Kearns when people start telling pollsters and call radio shows and make clear that the Republicans for whom they voted are going to be a great risk because they're doing nothing about tariffs, doing nothing about expelling 7,000 international students at Harvard, on and on down the line. You know what those Republicans are going to do? Decide they like their job more than they like Donald Trump. And they're going to finally, but Marjorie, if only a few broke away in the House and the Senate, we'd have a different United States.
Remember Josh Hawley? He's the senator from Missouri. Is he from Missouri?
Missouri,
where is he from?
Yeah, Missouri.
Okay. He was the guy, maybe remember him from January 6th, that gave the big fist up to all the protesters when he came in. And
we
then
don't call them protesters, but I know
rioters,
what you mean.
You want to call them whatever. And then 15 minutes later, he's running like hell to get away from them before he comes.
It's one of the great videos ever.
But anyway, I can't believe I'm rooting for Josh Hawley, who is now maybe one of the few Republicans that's going to stand up against Trump in the Senate.
On Medicaid.
On Medicaid, because he realizes that his constituents in Missouri need it.
As do the constituents of every Republican senator, by the way.
That's right. That's right. Okay.
Thanks for your calls.
God, I tell you.
And by the way, I want to say again, those kids, if you missed the first 10 minutes of the show, Leo and Abdullah, I'd listened to it on the podcast. They are really impressive young men.
Not that I want to steal them away from their families in Pakistan or Sweden, but wouldn't you like to have those young men in the United States starting companies and living here, that caller was, making her life here and making us a better country like so many immigrants to this country have done. Anyway, we've been we're talking about
Can
music.
I read? I'm going to read, before you do, I'm going to read a text. He doesn't want me to use his name. This is a news guy in town, everybody knows. What about all the Saudi, Qatari, and UAE students attending Harvard and other universities? Their parents must be thinking, is this all we get for a $400 million plane and billions in development deals?
What a great
That's a great text.
Thank you, anonymous newsman. I wish we'd thought of that.
Really
That's a great point. Okay, after a quick break, we're going to stop talking about this for a while. We're going to listen to some great music as Club Passim hosts their annual 4-day Campfire Festival. We'll talk with Managing Director Matt Smith and get a live performance. We are very excited from singer-songwriter Jessye DeSilva. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Support for GB.
Boston. Now on view, Van Gogh, the Rouland family portraits, featuring Van Gogh's portraits of the Rouland family and the deep bonds of friendship behind them. More at mfa.org. And Heights Crossing, an assisted living and memory support community offering residents experiences aimed at promoting independence, inspiring curiosity, and encouraging connection with others. More at heightscrossing.com. And the law firm of Davis Malm, knowing the lay of the land, not just the law. Learn more at davismalm.com. Davis Malm. Lean, agile, strategic. The next great performances is a spellbinding musical featuring the songs of Bob Dylan reimagined for the stage. Don't miss Girl from the North Country, tonight at 9 on GBH2.
Welcome to Boston Public Radio. Welcome back, I should say. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy, live at the library, streaming YouTube/GBH News. We've made it to Live Music Friday. If you're looking for an alternative or an add-on to Boston Calling this weekend, maybe an option that doesn't require a poncho and boots, consider Club Passim's Campfire Festival, returning for its 27th year at the legendary Harvard Square venue. 4 days, dozens of performers, all for just $30 or $15 for a day pass. Passim.org for tickets and info. Names you might not recognize now, but the festival's track record speaks for itself. Lake Street Dive, Regina Spektor, Peter Wolf, who was with us a few weeks ago, Mary Gaucher. One of those names you'll want to remember is Jessye DeSilva, who's performing at 8 p.m. tomorrow night. She's also here today with a band for Live Music Friday. And here they are performing the song Jar of Fireflies. Welcome to you all. Glad to have you. That's great. Thanks,
That
Phil.
was
Jessye, why don't you
fantastic.
join us?
Jessye, while Jesse's making her way over here, Matt, tell us a little bit about what's going on with
Did we say who
Campfire.
Matt was?
Oh, he's the managing.
Yes.
What are you, managing director
whoever
over
he
there?
is.
Managing director Matt Smith.
Hey, Matt. Nice to see you
Tell
again.
us a little bit about the history of Club Passim and also about what Campfire
Club
Festival is.
Passim has been around in Harvard Square for 67 years, starting out as the Club 47 back in 1958. We've been now a nonprofit organization for the past 30 years. And the Campfire Festival started 27 years ago now. And it's one of our biggest ways to bring in new talent into the room. We've been always, part of our mission is to develop new talent and bring in new artists. And it's amazing to see how now a festival that has been running for 27 years, where I'd say most of the people playing it are younger than the festival now.
Who are some of the people who were people hadn't heard of, except their families, who we've all heard of now?
Well, Lake Street Dive, Josh Ritter, Margaret Glaspie. There's just been so many over the years that have started out. You know, Laurie McKenna was first starting to play at the club back in the early days of the Campfire.
Multi-Grammy winner from
great
right
songwriter
here.
from
Mary
Massachusetts.
Gaucher.
Mary Gaucher.
There are so many, but then also we get in people that have been around for years that come and do it just for fun. Like you said, Peter Wolf had played it before, Al Cooper has played it before, and people just do it for the love of music.
How big a deal is this for you?
Passim, Campfire Fest is, I think it's going to be my fourth one.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, I mean, Club Passim is sort of like a legend of the sort of Boston, Cambridge, Somerville.
It's not sort of a legend. Let me be clear. It is a legend.
It is a legend. And, when I started kind of getting more serious about playing my own songs out, it was sort of like the white whale of places that I wanted to play. And my partner was reminding me the other day that, I remember sending tons of booking emails when I was just kind of starting out and being like, oh, Passim doesn't care about me. They don't know who I am. And now I've played Campfire like 4 times, and I've played the venue 2 or 3 times now. So it means a lot. It's a lovely way to connect with new local audience members, to connect with other artists that are in the scene, but I haven't met yet.
We didn't ask you to introduce your bandmates.
Yeah.
Our apologies. Do you want to do that before we continue?
Of course, yeah. We've got Alex Calabrese on bass.
Hey, Alex.
He has another band called Old Tom and the Lookouts, which you should all listen to, and Adam Susi on drums.
Hey, Adam.
Jessye, tell me, you said this was the white whale to be at Club Passim for you. So how did it happen? Do you send in tapes, send in whatever?
I don't know, like booking emails with
How did I get here?
Yeah, how'd you get here?
That's a
How'd
good
you
question.
do it? For the people that are out there thinking it's their white whale as well.
I mean, I sent in booking emails with, my press kit, with, links to my recordings, if I had any press write-ups, right? Like, I think as I started to get a little more under my belt, I think then, they started paying attention a little more.
And this was around here?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the environment like for a trans artist with a president who has targeted queer and trans people every chance he gets?
That is such a complicated question. So I have been trying to get my passport back since early January. I still don't have it. I sent it before the inauguration. I put a rush on it, thinking that I could get it done soon. I have trans students. I teach at Berkeley, at Boston Conservatory at Berkeley. I have trans students. It's scary, and it's really scary not having your international documentation, because it's like I wasn't hoping to flee the country, but when they take away your ability to do that, it starts to make you think, maybe I should.
And what was the excuse that you got for why this was taking so long?
Well, I didn't get an excuse. When it was just taking so long, they just kept telling me it's in process, it's in process, it's in process. And then about a month later, which was 2 weeks past the rush time that I should have been, I got a letter saying that they needed my birth certificate. Well, they needed proof of citizenship, which I said, I sent you my proof of citizenship because my passport was still valid. But they wanted to have something that proved my biological sex at birth. And so I haven't sent that, and so I still don't have my passport.
So that's what they're demanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And a lot of trans folks who have an updated, I do have an updated birth certificate that says female that has my name.
Yeah.
But folks are sending those things in and still just getting their passports back.
You know, Matt.
And
Sorry.
I was just
Martha,
going
go
to
ahead.
ask you, you mentioned teaching, Jessye, at Berkeley and having a lot of trans students. Are any of them from other countries?
None. I don't have personally any international students, but Berkeley, I think, is about 40% international. It's a very international students are such a huge part of the Berkeley and BOCO community. And the thing about the intersection, like you said, of being trans and being international is already trans people from other countries are having their visas denied. I know trans artists from other countries who have had to cancel tours.
You know, talking about the impact of the environment, Matt, I say this every week practically, but it seems to me that things like music are so much more important to people when they're under incredible stress and anxiety. And I find, I mean, our great beloved colleague, Brian O'Donovan, live music is where it's at. And for me, at least, and I think for a lot, live music is even more of where it's at now. Do you find that or no?
Absolutely, absolutely. Because it's not just about being entertained. It's about finding a community.
Yeah,
it's about
it really
finding
is.
your folk in the context of both the music itself, the genres of music, but also the people around it.
You know, Jessye, before you go back to join your bandmates and you'll tell us what you're going to play in a second, how do we find your music in general when you're not here?
I am on all the streaming platforms, Spotify, Apple Music, all of those places. I have a Bandcamp page. You can follow me on Instagram at Jessye D Music. It's Jessye D Music.
What are you playing?
I'm going to play another. So both of these are new songs on an album that hasn't come out yet, but is going to hopefully come out in the fall.
Renovations, right? Is that what the name is going to be?
Renovations
was
is
the last one.
album,
Okay,
yeah.
what's the new one called?
The new one is going to be called Glitter Up the Dark, and it focuses on the idea of joy, and joy of sort of marginalized queer folks particularly, and how sort of complex joy is. It's not just happy, it's something we have to protect. And
So you want to gently take your headphone off and go back to your bandmates. While we ask Matt, tell us one more time how we get tickets, info, the whole deal.
And what people are going to see when they go.
People can go to passim.org and find their tickets there. We have music starting at 6 o'clock tonight and going until about 11 o'clock, and then from 2 o'clock to 11 o'clock on Saturday, Sunday. And unlike Boston Calling, we do Monday as well.
Okay, fair enough.
And inside.
And it's inside, and it's also all live streamed, so people anywhere in the world can tune in.
All right, here we go.
Welcome back to you three. Here we go.
Gods of our immortal youth, climbing trees and seeking truth, headphones, solitude and whispers, short on patience, tired of waiting. So I scream and set off the alarm with my comrades in my arms, and we feel like no one has before. Something sacred in the breaking. We throw our bodies to the roar on the sticky VFW floor, squeezing out the last of summer nights, late day waking, sunscreen daydreams.
Thank you all. It's great.
That is great. Thank you so much. We've been speaking and listening to Jessye DeSilva, who performs tomorrow night, 8 p.m. at Club Passim's 4-day Campfire Festival. She'll also be at Passim on Saturday, June 21st for the Folk Collective's annual Pride Month show. Passim.org for tickets and info. Thank you to Managing Editor Matt Smith for joining us, being with us as well. Coming up after the noon news, Sue O'Connell's here on the Karen Reid trial and scandals at City Hall. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 live from the Boston Public Library, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's not over yet. More smart conversation about community issues up ahead with Jim Braude and Marjorie Egan on Boston Public Radio, right after a news update from NPR. Stay with us here on GBH 89.7.
I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Today on The Culture Show, disorder on the court. The Angel Reese-Caitlin Clark feud reaches a fever pitch. But who's responsible for raising the temperature on this rivalry? And there's an empty barstool in the hearts of millions of TV fans. George Wendt, who played Norm Peterson on Cheers, has died. Plus, the Boston Public Art Triennial is now open to, you guessed it, the public. That and more is on The Culture Show's Week in Review, today at 2 on 89.7 GBH.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Braude, ahead on Hour 2 of BPR, live from the BPL. Our Karen Reid correspondent Sue O'Connell joins us with the latest from the courtroom as the prosecution is about to rest. Plus, Marjorie's biggest concern is Canton just one big bar crawl, and the scandal in Boston City Hall, lovers' quarrel, and rumors of a political hit job. I'm still Jim Braude, and Marjorie is still not here, but she will be. We'll also talk with Trustees of Reservations leader Katie Theoharides about beach access, greenheads, rewilding golf courses, and of course, Trump's assault on the environment and all things conservation. Then if Marjorie lets me get a word in, our Two More Things segment. It's all ahead on the second hour of BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
A federal judge in California is once again ruling against the Trump administration in its efforts to downsize the federal government. NPR's Andrea Hsu with the latest.
U.S. District Judge Susan Ilston had already temporarily paused Trump's radical transformation of the federal government. Now she has extended that, stating clearly that the president may not initiate large-scale reorganization of the executive branch without partnering with Congress. She rejected the Trump administration's argument that agencies are acting on their own in accordance with the law. She wrote that over the last 100 years, 9 presidents have sought and obtained authority from Congress to reorganize the government. Others, including Trump in his first term, asked for approval and did not receive it. Andrea Hsu, NPR News.
Congress has voted to roll back part of the Clean Air Act that controls toxic air pollutants. It's the first time lawmakers have loosened regulations in the law's long history. NPR's Alejandra Barunda reports.
In the 1990s, Congress tasked the EPA with controlling emissions of toxic air pollutants, especially 7 super dangerous ones like dioxins and mercury. John Walk is an environmental lawyer at the Natural Resources Defense Council. He says the pollution comes from places like oil refineries, chemical plants, and lead smelters.
We call it the worst of the worst list.
During the first Trump administration, the EPA rolled back some of those regulations. Then, the Biden-era EPA put some of them back in place. Now, Congress has reversed them again in a more durable way. Supporters say it will ease the regulatory burden on industry. Health experts worry it will increase cancer-causing air pollution. Alejandra Barunda, NPR News.
The company behind the artificial intelligence chatbot ChatGPT is joining forces with one of the best-known designers in Silicon Valley to make AI-enabled devices. More from NPR's John Ruwitch.
OpenAI says it's buying a startup called I.O. for about $6.5 billion. I.O. was launched last year by the designer Johnny Ive, who created the iPhone and other iconic products for Apple. The tie-up deal links the legendary designer with Sam Altman, OpenAI's CEO and one of the driving forces behind the explosive growth of AI in recent years. The goal, they say, is to create AI-powered devices. John Ruwitch, NPR News.
The Treasury Department's decided when it comes to the penny, it's time to cash out. Texas A&M professor Raymond Robertson explains why phasing out production of the 1-cent coin's a money saver.
The cost of producing the penny itself is just about 4 cents, which means that for every penny that the United States government prints, we're actually losing money.
Treasury says the U.S. will save $56 million a year. The Dow Jones Industrial Average is down 273 points, or more than 0.5%. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon from the GBH Radio Newsroom in Boston. I'm Craig Lamoltz. International students at Harvard say they're horrified by the Trump administration's move to block the school from enrolling foreign students. The administration announced the decision yesterday, the latest in a series of actions taken against Harvard. But if the administration prevails, current international students could be forced to transfer. Abdullah Shahid Sial is an international student from Pakistan. He tells GBH's Boston Public Radio the action is unfair.
They are not just political pawns, which the Trump administration wants us to believe. They have all of their own individual stories, and them being dehumanized and disrespected in this manner, where they're being thrown from Harvard's administration to the Trump administration and being used as quote-unquote collateral. That entire narrative just makes every single international feel extremely unwelcome.
Harvard is suing the Trump administration in hopes of blocking the ban. A record number of travelers is expected to hit the road in Massachusetts this Memorial Day weekend. Forecasters say yesterday's rain prevented some drivers from getting an early start. AAA's Mark Shieldrop says that means roads could get very backed up this afternoon.
Those bottlenecks that we always see, getting onto the Mass Pike or getting onto 93 or 95, those areas generally back up during rush hour on a normal day. So we can expect to see just a little bit of additional volume as those travelers mix with commuters.
Shieldrop says most people are expected to make the return trips on Monday between 4 and 7 p.m. In the forecast, clouds and some showers today, clouds tomorrow, and more clouds and a chance of rain tomorrow, a high near 60. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from NPR stations. Other contributors include National Geographic Lindblad Expeditions, committed to taking travelers deeper into the wonders of planet Earth. Each expedition cruise is guided by a diverse team. natgeoexpeditions.com/cruises.
Welcome to hour number 2 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Browdy and Marjorie Egan, thank you. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We are on tape for Memorial Day. You'll hear us, but it won't be live. We'll be back live Tuesday here at the Boston Public Library with the president of Assumption University, Greg Weiner, and the mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, is going to join us on Wednesday. That's also at the library. Hello again, Jim.
Hello again. Before we introduce our guest, we started the show, if you just tuned in, with 2 international students, one from Pakistan, the co-president of the student body, Abdullah, and a student supposed to graduate later this week from Sweden, Leo. And in that discussion, or the subsequent discussion, I not only criticized the federal courts for moving so slowly, but I respectfully disagreed with Judge Gerdén, who said the other day she thought the courts were moving quickly. Well, here's Judge Gerdén quoted in the Globe an hour ago. Judge Allison Burroughs in Massachusetts District Court could grant a temporary restraining order against barring these international students immediately. And you know what Judge Burroughs did?
She did it.
She granted a temporary restraining order.
I love it.
So it is not a final decision, but about 15 minutes ago, Judge Burroughs, Judge Gerdén was right, granted a temporary restraining order against these actions. Again, that does not resolve the whole issue, but at least in the interim, gives some temporary relief to these wonderful young people, like the 2 who joined us. Speaking of wonderful young people, Ann Sue, our favorite local woman.
I'm younger than you 2.
Yeah,
That's right.
That is really cool.
Just
Whatever.
A fact.
Let's skip to the next segment.
Okay, let's stick.
Wonderful local woman, media maven Sue O'Connell, co-publisher of Bay Windows and the South End News, commentator and news influencer at NBC Boston. Catch Sue on Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed Trial, weeknights at 7 on NBC 10, and available Sundays on Peacock. Sue, it's great to see you.
Thank you. Good to see you. I miss you guys. Good to see you.
Yeah, I know. I told Sue before we went on the air that I'm so jealous.
Yeah.
My favorite thing was covering trials when I was a reporter, and you've been covering this trial.
Yes.
This has been a doozy.
So
what
again.
what is the latest in the Karen Reed trial? The people don't know she's accused of running over her boyfriend, Boston police officer John O'Keefe, and leaving him to die in a blizzard.
That's right. So she is charged with murder, manslaughter, and leaving the scene. And it looks like the prosecution, the Commonwealth, is scheduled to rest on Tuesday with their last witness that's going to come up, which we believe is going to be the accident reconstructionist. This has been a much quicker trial than the last one in terms of the number of witnesses the Commonwealth has called. Special Prosecutor Hank Brennan, who was a defense attorney who you have spent, you lovely taxpayers, over $250,000 to hire him and counting to do this, is doing an exceptional job. But we'll have to wait and see what happens when the defense gets
What is
up.
the difference? I mean, if you can, in relatively short order, what's the primary difference between the first prosecution and the one that's about to conclude?
So, ADA Adam Lally, who was the prosecutor on the last trial, is a dedicated public servant and had numbers of cases that he was working on in addition to the Karen Reed trial while he was working on it. And he took a very workmanlike approach to presenting the case to the jury, and he did it chronologically, and he called every single witness he could possibly find, and we were buried in information that really muddled what the narrative is that the prosecutor should be saying. Hank Brennan, on the other hand, he doesn't say a lot. He gets up there, he asks really direct questions. He has cut the witness list enormously without damaging the case, I think. I think he still has successfully moved it forward, and that's been the big difference. It's also put the defense on its back foot a little bit, because even though these are many of the same witnesses, they're not the same witnesses because of the way Hank Brennan has prepared them. So the defense has also been, like I said, on its back foot a little bit more.
So do you think they made a more effective case in round two than they did in round one?
They have, but they still have the same problems that they had with the first case. And
which are?
The reasonable doubt issues are still very much in every single category of, I think, the Commonwealth's argument. And we will see on Tuesday if this accident reconstructionist expert can get up and tell us how John O'Keefe was hit by this vehicle when he has no real injuries below his neck that would be consistent with a vehicle hit, and Karen Reed's vehicle, even though it has a broken taillight, has no consistent damage to a pedestrian hit. So that's going to be his job.
Okay, before we leave the subject, the great Beth Titel weighed in on whether Canton has an alcohol problem over there, because everybody's either going into the Waterfall Bar and Grill or coming out of the Waterfall or going into C.J. McCarthy's. Even the hoity-toity New Yorker has weighed in on the Karen Reed trial. And what they said in the New Yorker, everybody drinks and drives. Spend enough time mucking around the Copland and Canton bog of this case, and you'll never get into a car after 8 p.m. in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts ever again. Vegas has nothing to worry about. That's from Beth Titel.
Yeah.
So, but she went to find out that actually people aren't any more alcohol infused in Canton than they are in the rest of Massachusetts.
I would challenge Beth that they're just not getting arrested. I lived in Canton for 10 years, 10 years ago.
Really?
Yes, I lived actually in John O'Keefe's neighborhood, right near Meadows on Pleasant Street. I would dare say that life in the suburbs is a very boozy experience, I think.
In general.
In general, not just Canton. I mean, I had a great experience in Canton. I have friends in Canton. I love Canton.
Yeah.
I'm sad that all this is happening in Canton. But the very first Halloween that we went trick-or-treating, I came home with nips, right? And the second Halloween we went trick-or-treating, somebody had set up a Martha Stewart-like buffet and was serving booze.
God.
And there was also a street that was called the Open Bottle Club, which meant that when the kids got home from school at 3, someone would show up with a bottle of wine, and is it wine o'clock yet? And I also want to say seriously, the alcoholism in police and law enforcement is a serious problem. I mean, we're looking at this subset of Canton residents who happen to all mostly be law enforcement.
Yeah,
having a couple of White Claws at the Waterfall is not going to be the end of you, but drinking all day long, from even the people that aren't necessarily involved in this case that are not suspects, going to a police funeral in New York and then stopping 3 times before you get home and then drink. I mean, it's a serious problem. I mean, and if alcohol hadn't been involved in this, John O'Keefe may still be alive. I mean, I'm not blaming the victim here, but he also was intoxicated. His blood level was almost 4 times the legal limit when he died. Had he not been intoxicated, he may not have died because the alcohol in his system contributed to the hypothermia that contributed to the blunt force trauma.
And if you've had a lot of liquor, you might more easily pass out, one would say.
Can we, I was going to bring up what I bring up with you every time you're here, which I continue to be incredulous about, which is that Karen Reed talks to the press. She's leaving the courtroom yesterday. How you feeling? Great. Can't wait. I've never, and I understand what the purpose is. It is humanizing a defendant, and I think they're doing it brilliantly, frankly. But I want to bring up one other thing. I've thought a lot about if she's acquitted, which she was close to being, as we all know now in the first trial, will they ever catch and convict someone? And I'd never thought of this. This is humiliating as a lawyer in particular. I'm reading, you're my primary source on Karen Reed. My secondary source is the Globe. And the Globe today or yesterday had a Q&A with a bunch of questions. And they did something answered a question like, how likely is it that they'll find the real murderer? It sounds like O.J. Simpson. If she's acquitted. And the point that was made by whoever the journalist was, it's almost impossible because there's a built-in reasonable doubt, because obviously what the defense said is, hello, cops and prosecutors, you thought she was the killer. You were wrong, but in light of that fact, there's reasonable doubt by definition, which means if she's acquitted, and again, I'm not arguing for acquittal or conviction, but if she's acquitted of these crimes, it is likely that no one will ever be held accountable for John O'Keefe's death. Yeah, although that they have testified, Trooper Buchanan testified that they are still investigating the case, but the case Do we believe that or no? Well, they are investigating it. I don't know what his definition of the case is. It might be adjacent The case against Karen Reed.
Yeah, but I mean, but the state police mark this as a closed case, because they have found who they think did it, and that's how they mark it. But at this point, look, part of the reasonable doubt about this case is that the state police didn't investigate it adequately and robustly within the first 7 days, if not the first 5 days, or the first month, or the first 100 days. So if they didn't do a good job, and that brings reasonable doubt to your point, now several years later, there's nothing they're going to be able to investigate. So unless somebody really knows something, or it's just going to remain a mystery.
They also got the wrong charges, if you ask me. Well, there should be an involuntary manslaughter charge in there. Because
when this is done, I think that we're all going to have to take a look at how our tax dollars are spent, and also how we prosecute murders. Norfolk County doesn't prosecute a lot of murders, and they've got some big murder cases coming up, oversight with the Massachusetts State Police. And as I keep saying every time I have an opportunity, every single law enforcement agency in every city and town should be audited, not because we're worried about them using the right pronouns, although that's important, but can they actually respond and investigate something when it happens? Because the audit from the Canton Police showed no conspiracy, but they were not trained enough to actually respond to this call. So where's the money going?
Okay, one last thing about this. I thought, and maybe I'm mistaken, that if a murder happens at a place like Canton, the state cops are there almost immediately.
They do, but he wasn't dead when they showed up.
Oh,
so John O'Keefe was still alive. There's a saying, a very, very medical, cold-blooded saying, that if you're not dead until you're warm and dead, and his body temperature was so low, they still thought there was a chance he might be alive.
Okay.
So the state police were not brought into the investigation until he was declared dead later in the morning. But the Canton police still had to respond, and had he not been dead, right, had he survived, that would have been a wonderful thing, but would she still have been charged with assault with a deadly weapon? They still would have botched the original investigation of it.
That's an excellent point.
I hate to rush you, but it's almost wine o'clock, so we really have to move this thing along. Can we talk about accountability? That's my major, accountability and transparency is my whole shtick. A city councilor was convicted of essentially engaging in a corrupt activity. The $7,000 passed along in a bathroom, pled guilty, and...
Think about that. $7,000 passed along in the bathroom in cash.
In cash.
If she just Venmo'd it and wrote loan on it, she wouldn't be in jail right now.
So, and she obviously, part of the deal, she's going to resign. She hasn't resigned. And I have to say, there's a divide in the city council in Boston. And by the way, even if you don't care about, but this is something that's a little bigger in my estimation about accountability. The two arguably most conservative, I don't know if that's fair, but tell me if it's unfair.
Conservative in
Boston, which is not exactly,
right.
is Flynn and Murphy.
Right.
Murphy wrote a piece in the Globe that I thought was really wise. They filed a resolution. They don't have the power to kick her out under the charter or whatever the hell it is. Fellow city councilors don't. But basically saying, let's pass a sense of the body that this is a disgrace. How do we have any credibility as a body when we have a woman sitting here who is a felon, right?
Yes.
It was a felony who's going to resign. And the Globe in an editorial, I don't know if they use these words, but this is what the point was. It appears like, and it's a money grab. It's essentially, I'm staying there so I can take as much money until the deadline hits. Is any of that?
Yeah, it's all true.
Why are you shaking your head?
I'm shaking your head because there's also...
I'm not shaking my head. You're shaking your head.
Yeah, I haven't checked the dates on this, but there's also the issue of the special election.
I think we've passed that thing.
Did we pass that date?
And they, by the way, and they could vote, and there'd be a home rule petition to waive it. So that's really it.
Yeah.
That's a BS argument.
Yeah, it's...
I don't mean
No,
on your behalf, but
I wasn't sure if that had passed, because I know that the pressure on her, there was also some political aspects about, do we want to do this election? Yeah, I mean, listen, our city council has virtually no power on a general basis, and that's for not their fault individually. That's the fault of how
Powerful mayor.
Well, just the mayor and the way we set up the city council and the racism against the Irish in the 1800s that kept when the Irish started taking some power.
Always comes back to racism against the Irish, too.
But why are the progressives, including the blocking this resolution, at least make a statement to the people of Boston? We're with you. We don't want someone who's disgracing our body and the city continuing to sit and draw a paycheck.
I imagine because there's an interscene issue. I mean, you served on a city council, Jim.
I wouldn't say serve. I was elected and I did one term.
I don't have any real inside info because I've been in the Dedham courthouse, but I imagine it's more complicated than it seems to be.
Do you want to read that text, please?
Yeah, the way you described the drinking culture in Canton. Someone just texted and said, hey, you guys, if you're not doing a show on Monday, you want to meet up with me in Canton?
Poor Canton.
Exactly.
I got to tell you.
Yeah.
That's where Paul Revere's mill, or
really?
Yeah, it's a beautiful
really
section.
True?
Yeah, it's gorgeous. Canton's
How'd you
gorgeous.
end up in Canton, though, if I may ask?
That's
Is that
a long
too
story.
personal? Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Well, in fairness to Canton and all the other burbs, I mean, unlike Boston where you can walk to the bar and get drunk.
You can walk to the bar in Canton.
But a lot of times you do have to drive.
Just the thing about Canton is that
you're supposed to drive, but there's some driving going on in the burbs.
You can get everywhere within about 7 minutes within Canton.
Oh, you can.
Can I tell you something? By the way, this is a perfect opportunity to mention what you mentioned about once every 2 months. Is I bumped into at the memorial for Phil Johnson, one of the great people I ever met. While I'm in line, I bump into a guy whose name you may not know. His name is Ron Bersani.
Yep.
Marjorie and I met Ron Bersani a couple of decades ago, give or take. His granddaughter, who I think was 13 years old, Melanie Powell, was killed by a drunk driver.
Who had a long record of being arrested for drunk driving.
And Ron took it upon himself. And one of the most impressive, as a citizen activist, he showed us when he was on the show, he'd bring his little 3-ring binder, pictures of his granddaughter, facts about drunk driving. He, as a citizen activist, one person, went to every damn legislator on Beacon Hill until ultimately they tightened the drunk driving laws. It's called Melanie's Law, by the way, in honor of his granddaughter. And as you said, there's a whole culture. I'm not saying they're not drunk drivers, and I know obviously there are, but it really changed the mindset because of one man's dedication to his granddaughter.
It was not a joke. I remember when I was a kid, people would joke about driving drunk. People don't joke about it anymore. And we should point out one thing, what an incredible achievement that was on Bersani's part, because as people may know, a lot of people up at Beacon Hill, the defense lawyers, and they spend a lot of money defending drunk drivers.
Right.
They spent a lot of time drinking on Beacon Hill. Toga. Don't you remember that?
That's right. Were they shaving their legs at the toga party?
I don't think everybody's legs. Just some of their
putting their legs up over the ancient
fine.
seats there. I don't know if they had shaving cream or not. I'm not sure.
Why don't you check it out and have one of your staff check it out?
Okay, speaking of things going amok in politics, this couple that got into a domestic fracas that worked for the city of Boston was dragging in a third person who was a big deal at City Hall, Segun a duo. Anyway.
He's secretary of he does economic stuff.
Yeah.
He's former head of BECMA. And there's almost a duel in the Globe between, it seems, I don't want to speak for them, but Joan Venaki thinks it's got to be dug deeper. And Shirley Leung, a regular here, seeming to suggest that this is unfair tarnishing
the fight
of higher up.
I agree with you. Yeah, so
Well,
you
good.
want to set the
I was
setup.
going to say the fight was supposedly about the man thinking that this woman had a date with this higher up in City Hall, and according to Shirley, it wasn't a date. They ran into each other at some place, and that he should not be dragged into this.
Yeah, I agree with Shirley. I think this is to your earlier question about City Hall. I think this is one of those issues where there are people who are out to tarnish Shagun, and I think that they are using this
woo in turn.
and woo in turn.
Yeah.
And I think that this is part of that effort. You know, the larger issue, of course, is you have this young couple who are, obviously had a domestic violence issue between the two of them,
and wrist tied,
and obviously said what every white politician in history has ever said when they're stopped. I work at City Hall, as apparently it's not just for white people anymore. So, I have been concerned about the youth of Mayor Wu's staff, which I have obviously encouraged and think it's great. And also, there's a challenge when you bring people who have earned their right to be at the table to the table, but they haven't been through a lot of vetting sometimes because of institutional obstacles that they've had to deal with. So I have been concerned that a lot of people working in the Wu administration haven't had enough mentors and enough people sort of helping them through. At the same time, though, obviously it's not something you can tolerate when there's domestic violence, and it does to some degree fall on Wu because these are people who work for her. I do think that Joan Venaki...
She fired him, by the way, for its word.
Yeah, thank you. I think that Joan Venaki does raise an issue, too, is like, well, what is everybody doing at City Hall? What is this department? Have we looked to see if it's been successful or not? So there's a number of issues here, but I think it's all worth examining, but I would caution, not to just drag people in because there's some folks
Yeah, the question was there a power imbalance here? Was Shagun the boss of this person? And it doesn't seem like that he was the boss of
It wasn't
anybody.
a direct boss.
Not direct boss.
apparently.
And, I also, feel we've sometimes twisted ourselves into this knot where if you run into your boss outside of work, you're not ever allowed to, have a drink with them or talk to them. As long as you're not driving in Canton, I imagine it's okay.
Shagun is not much of a cook, and he eats out 5 nights a week.
Yes, he is indeed.
Yeah.
Well, you're not much of a cook, and
I'm
you don't
not.
eat out
I'd
5
be out
nights
every
a
night
week.
if I could,
Well, I
too.
stay home and have my exciting peanut butter and banana
So,
sandwich.
Sue, before you go, we got a text from Marjorie from Brookline this morning saying, could you please explain to me why Bill Belichick renamed his boat 1+8 rings? Could you answer for Marjorie from Brookline,
I just want to be very
please?
clear. When I'm at home with my 24-year-old daughter, Ruby, and we are watching some news about Bill Belichick and Jordan, I look at the screen and I say, Ruby, what are you doing? This could have been you. What is happening here? Why are you not dating Bill Belichick?
Exactly.
And then there are other moments where I just walk around and I'm like, I didn't pay a bill, or I forgot to do something, or I sent an email that I had too many typos in, and I say, why don't I have a Jordan? How come I don't have a Jordan telling me to pose on the beach and do an Instagram? So I'm all
You
for
could be working at Toys R Us in Provincetown,
Exactly.
too, like
Right.
her
I mean,
mother.
Think about it. You'd have $8 million worth of real estate by now.
I would be, no kidding.
Your places in Dorchester,
The
place
3
down
decades.
the Cape.
That was the other thing that some of the poor kids at the office were like, these are $1 million. I said, 3 decades.
3 decades.
Absolutely.
They've
You know
come
what's
up
really
in the world.
liberating? Every time we mention Belichick, we take a huge amount of crap. One of the great moments in last year on the show was when the New York Times did a huge takeout on this. Because when the New York Times does a long story on a subject, don't you have total cover?
Yeah,
you go as low road
Well,
as
that's
you
why
want.
I said the New Yorker is covering Karen Reed. We get complaints about Karen Reed, too.
Right, no.
If you get the New Yorker and the
And
New
the
York
Atlantic,
Times weighing
everything.
in, and the Atlantic, then you say, high road.
So
high
there
road.
might have been a spat on the Nantucket, to answer your question, between one of his exes and Jordan, and the boat that he owns has been renamed. So there might have been some, you know how it is when you're dating someone and then you keep asking them to improve and improve, and like, how come we can't can't do some Instagram? How come we can't do that? And he's like, I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. And then suddenly there he is, a totally new person, and you get mad. You get a little resentful, so I understand that. So Nantucket's going to be really hot this summer, I'll tell you.
So obviously this is going to replace Canton Confidential in a few weeks. Is that not?
Yes.
Is that not clear?
I really just walk around
Nantucket
NBC.
Confidential.
Poor Trenny. Trenny is done with me saying, I want a Jordan. She's like, we stop saying that.
Canton Confidential.
Oh, my God.
I love it. It's a great name.
Belichick Continental. We're
Yeah,
gonna have that
Belichick
next.
Confidential. That's right. Okay.
Nice to see you, Sue O'Connell.
Good to see you too. See you soon. I'll see you soon someday.
Yeah.
You will,
Well,
yeah.
the trial's going to be over soon, so we hope we
we'll
can
see.
get you back more
Yeah,
often
that's
because you
right.
are our media maven, as you know.
I know.
Okay, we have been speaking with our media maven, Sue O'Connell, co-publisher of Bay Windows and South End News, commentator and news influencer at NBC Boston. I wish I could be a news influencer.
You sort of are.
Catch Sue on Canton Confidential, the Karen Reed trial, every weeknight at 7 o'clock. That means you can watch it again tonight, NBC 10. It's also available Sundays on Peacock. Thank you very much, Sue O'Connell.
Can I add one thing? I rarely quote Howie Carr,
Yeah.
but it really, and you lived there for 10 years, he says it should be called Canton Confidential because no one in Canton pronounces their T's. Is that, it seems to be fair. Is that correct? Okay. Just want to be clear.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
Coming up after a quick break, Katie Theaharides from the Trustees of Reservations
Very
is
nicely
here.
done.
It is not quite a beach weekend, unfortunately, but she's going to tell us about this Caribbean-style beach. I never thought of it that way up in Ipswich, but she's going to tell us why it is a Caribbean-style beach and what Trump is doing, of course, to ruin everybody's air and water and environment and rewilding a golf course. What's that? She's going to tell us. Katie Theaharides is up next. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's been 5 years since a Minneapolis police officer murdered George Floyd.
This looks like we're still stuck in a rut. We're not doing anything to try to fix some of the issues. I don't see that being a good thing, especially 5 years later.
I'm Ari Shapiro. How the community of South Minneapolis is reckoning with its past and future on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Bridgewater State University, helping create jobs for Massachusetts and working to connect industry leaders to graduates, elevating business in Boston and beyond. bridgew.edu/elevate. And Comcast, offering Xfinity with internet and mobile plans to help stay connected at home and on the go. Restrictions apply. Xfinity Internet requires Xfinity Mobile. Actual speeds vary.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan and Jim Browdy live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. We're on tape for Memorial Day, a best of thing. We have Ken Burns. Who else is on Monday? A really good show. Whatever it is, some great interviews from the recent past. We're back on Tuesday at the library. And on Wednesday, what time? Noon to 1, Mayor Wu will join us in person for an hour of Obviously Ask the Mayor. Joined now by Katie Theaharides, almost, President and CEO of the Trustees of Reservations, the oldest land conservation nonprofit in the world. We originally thought today would be a great day to talk to her because Memorial Day weekend is usually the start of summer. But whatever. Katie, it's great to see you. Welcome back. How are you?
Good. Thank you for having me. And the beach is always a good place to go, even in the rain.
Even in the rain. Is it really?
Actually, that is true. It is.
It's beautiful. The sky is, against the horizon.
We know that.
Yes.
Okay, fine.
All the
Okay.
things.
Okay.
Nice to see you.
So we have spent much of the morning complaining about what President Trump has done to Harvard and medical research, et cetera, et cetera. What has it meant for you, the trustees?
Well, I think it's no surprise that from a president who's going after foreign students, nutrition, families, that the administration is also really bad, existentially bad for the environment. Everything from looking at rolling back clean air provisions and other regulations to essentially gutting federal agencies that take care of our most precious lands and waters, to significantly cutting funding that's affected us and many of our partners in this space. We are all feeling the impact of this administration.
How are you feeling it here in Massachusetts?
In Massachusetts, we've seen cuts to our own funding. The regulations will affect our environment it's our home, it's all one thing. So anything that is tamping down on the climate action we're supposed to do will affect our environment here in Massachusetts. But what I will say is that local conservation organizations, local environmental NGOs are standing together, and many of us are moving faster than we ever have before. So at the trustees, just in this last year, we've conserved more land than we've ever done in our entire history. And that land allows people to get outside, be in touch with nature. It protects our air, it protects our water, it protects the climate. So we need the federal government to come back and be strong on this, and we're going to fight for the environment, but we are doing work here at the local level.
I don't want to leave this, though. You actually lost people power. Did you not lose some human beings? Am I right about that, or am I wrong?
Not as a result of the federal cuts.
Oh, what
we've
was
lost some. We've lost some grant money that we'd already spent, particularly around some of the storytelling we do on our properties. One of the projects we'd worked on was the story of the first freed enslaved woman in Massachusetts, and that funding got cut.
Why'd you lose that grant?
It was Dojid.
Oh,
Yes.
well, so
because she was black, that's
Yes.
why.
Well, I mean, that is pretty, maybe that's indirect, but that's pretty much a federal kind of deal.
Yeah.
You know, the scariest thing I heard, I was mentioning this, I don't know why, a day or two ago, you probably know more than I. The reporting, Bloomberg and others were saying that what the Trump administration planned for nonprofits who work in the environmental conservation world, like obviously you do, for Earth Day, the gift for Earth Day was that the Internal Revenue Service was going to change the definition of who was entitled to nonprofit status. The provision is 501c3 of the Internal Revenue Code, and they were on the verge of announcing that the word climate would be eliminated from the list of things that was eligible for nonprofit status if you worked on that. That didn't happen. Should we assume that that's not going to happen, or is that still lingering over people?
Well, as one of my good friends and colleagues, Brad Campbell at Conservation Law Foundation says, bad ideas die hard. And we all spent, the weeks leading up to Earth Day, that weekend on phone calls trying to figure out what we were going to do, how we were going to challenge it, and we're ready to go if it should happen. That would be an existential threat to all of our existence.
Virtually every organization.
Virtually every organization. And, particularly landholding organizations, that portfolio, if it was taxed, we would not be able to care for it.
Speaking of landholding organizations, we should do it. Okay.
I'm just going to ask you one thing about that, though. So much of what the president does is unlawful, but people do it because they have to wait till the courts come rescue them, and that takes months and years. Would it be unlawful for the president to do what he's talking about with these NGOs?
We think so.
Yeah.
And there would be a challenge. And I think something that's really important to me in this moment, and something I've heard many of my peers talking about, is not to preemptively capitulate to what the administration is doing. So, so many organizations pulled back on their diversity, equity, and inclusion goals. We have not. We are committed to these. And we all have this moment to stand up and raise our voices. We can't do it all the time in terms of we have to take turns and people need to give each other strength. But I think the worst thing you can do is cave in before you've even gotten the demand to do so.
Well, on that note, I should say, we've said this about 10,000 times, but why not say it 10,001? To my knowledge, no entity that has capitulated has gotten anything for their... We mentioned this morning, Tim Cook, according to CNN, is going to see higher tariffs on his products. He gave $1 million to Trump, to whom he used to oppose, and went to the inauguration. Colombia, as Marjorie says to me every morning, did they get their $400 million back yet?
No, they did not.
No, they did not. The law firms, the 4 capitulating law firms, $950 million of pro bono, in quotes, assistance to Trump's causes, representing coal mine operators, and in all likelihood, having to represent the administration against places like Harvard. So if anybody knows an example of where a capitulator got something, maybe, what's her name, Shari Redstone, is going to get something when she destroys CBS News and gives Trump a big check for his phony lawsuit. But it's really a capitulation. It's not just a theory. It has been demonstrated in these 120 days. Does not work. We're talking to Katie Theoharides, who's the president and CEO of the Trustees of Reservations.
Well, I mentioned when I was introducing you or announcing that you were coming that Crane Beach in Ipswich has been compared to a Caribbean beach. So sing the praises of Crane Beach for a few minutes.
Yeah, so Crane Beach, it's actually the first place I went to at the Trustees 20 years ago, so well before I got this job. And stepping out onto the beach. It's a beautiful white sands beach, very fine, clean sand. The water is crystal clear. You can see the sun through it, which maybe is some of that Caribbean reference. The sand dunes are tall. Off season, there's horses on the beach, and it's just it's a magical scene. But during the summer, beautiful swimming. We take care of the Crane Estate, which is above it, a beautiful European-looking landscape, and it just the whole complex was just in Condé Nast Travelers' top beaches in the Boston area. So we love sharing this place with people, though. It's such a special place to go.
Yeah, but there's one problem that we've mentioned in the past.
we talk about this a lot.
I was looking at the sun, I think it was last summer, and then all of a sudden the sun became dark. And I texted Marjorie, I said, I think it's a solar eclipse. And Marjorie texted me back, she says, no, it's greenheads. And so look at Katie
only
right
for a
here.
few days.
It's the only
Only a
time
few
I've ever
days.
seen this woman defensive about it. You're not responsible for the greenheads. And so your line, I think, is, and it is a line, I'm sorry.
No,
your line is they're only there for 2 weeks. Is
They
that
are
it?
only there for 2
2
weeks.
weeks.
It's a very short breeding season. They come out to breed and lay eggs. They need a blood meal. They actually only eat, I think, once. They eat and then they go away. And the health of, the more healthy the ecosystem, the more birds we have. We have the boxes in the marsh to take care of them. And we also sell a great bug repellent.
Now, let me just say, I read a story, on Wicked Local. I'm sorry, we'll do this for another minute, then we'll move on. Says it's giving all the things you should do to protect your... Oh, this is from mosquitoes. I'm sorry.
Yeah, mosquitoes are out all the time. We don't have
They
mosquitoes
are.
on Crane Beach.
You don't?
But
Because of the, is that because of the breeze, by
the
the way?
breeze really keeps them off. And if you go on a day when it is that 2-week greenhead season, and there's a breeze, it's really no problem either.
Do you go during that 2-week period?
I do.
You really do?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So could you do us a favor? We should have done this at the beginning. Every time you're here, I worry that everybody knows trustees of reservations. I'm not sure everybody knows exactly what you do.
Yeah.
And it's huge.
I should have asked that, Jim.
What's your jurisdiction? What do you do? The whole breadth of things.
Yeah, so we protect for public use and access landscapes of scenic, historic, and cultural value all across the state of Massachusetts. And as an organization, we were the first regional land conservation organization to protect private open space for public use. We have 123 reservations across the state. We open these up to the public. It's over 27,000 acres of land, and we continue to protect that land, both for the environmental benefits, but particularly to connect people with nature. What we believe is that if people have experiences of loving and connecting with nature through art, through music, through going to the beach, more people will join this effort to save the environment.
You know, when you just said that, not only to save the environment, we just had our musical act, which we have at 11:30 on Fridays. I ask the question I ask every week, isn't music in art even more important in stressful, horrible times? I assume the answer to this is the same. Isn't nature more important to people?
Yes.
So flesh it out a bit.
Nature is so important to people in times of stress, and there's data that shows that hospital rooms that look out over a tree, the patients have better outcomes.
You remember the tree at Children's Hospital?
Yes,
there was
that was a big debate.
There was a big debate about cutting it down,
lost.
right?
They did cut it down. I thought that was terrible.
But go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, one of the things that we're not a political organization. Obviously, we are working on all of these challenges in this moment, but one of the things that we feel is most important to our work ahead is to offer respite and opportunities to go to nature and gather strength.
So there are more people using your stuff in times like these?
Yes,
than in
and
normal
during COVID, we saw this when I was with the state, 300 times the volume of visitors during COVID. 300 times on a weekend.
That is incredible.
And I think, also the other thing that was big was gardening during COVID.
There she is.
Getting your hands in the dirt.
Yes.
It really is a stress relieving activity. And then, we are lucky that we have an art museum, we have music, we have historic homes. There's all of these different ways to connect into
So tell people, the website, so people can know where they go to find out, which places and how, and et cetera.
It's www.thetrustees.org.
That's very easy.
Pretty simple.
Okay,
but you got to have the in there.
And that will list places, and I mean, this was this the piece about Ipswich. Was this the Condé Nast piece that you mentioned? The travel. Where was this written?
Yeah, Condé Nast.
Yeah, they have everything. They put in the restaurants and everything else. So that's a really good place.
And you can actually at Crane Beach, you can stay in we have an inn there, so you can do a whole inclusive. There's an inn on the Crane Estate. There's the Crane Estate to explore. You can then go down to the beach, and we have a kayak rental program as well.
So actually, before you go, let's talk about some of the summer programs in a minute. But I learned a word from you or your operation today that I'd never heard before that I am enamored of big time. Rewild. I mean, it doesn't get much better than that.
I love that.
We've done shows on how they should eliminate every golf course in America. Sorry, guys, for the most part out there. For water reasons, for explain what you're doing in Western Mass, which is spectacular, I think.
Yeah. So in Williamsburg, in Western Massachusetts, little town between Northampton and the Hill Towns, there's a 288-acre piece of land, mostly forest, but the front portion of it is a 9-hole golf course, and the owner is retiring it, selling it, and moving to Florida. He did not find a golf course buyer, and so we are raising money to buy it and bring it back to its natural condition. There's a stream, Beaver Brook, that wends its way through this golf course. It's been really channelized to be in the golf course. The lawns are, of course, manicured. There's been a lot of fertilizer, pesticide dumped on the property. All of that is going to go away. We're going to allow the stream to go back to its natural course, and it's going to become a floodplain that soaks in heavier rain and then allows people to walk these beautiful cart paths.
How long does that take, the rewilding, if that's the right word?
It's going to, so, you know, it will essentially never be complete, right? These projects go on forever, but we think in about 5 years it will start to look really.
What else do you do beside the stream thing you talked about?
The sand traps.
Yeah, it will be, you know, probably getting rid of the sand traps. Yeah. Obviously planting a lot of native plant species that can suck up water, suck up some of these nutrients that were there. And it's already a great site for for wildlife. So the stream, before it comes through, is a Massachusetts designated cold water fishery, which means it has brook trout and all sorts of mussels and other creatures. It's really biodiverse. And so restoring it through the section where it's been really damaged from the Gulf operation is a great opportunity as well.
And talk for a minute. You know, a lot of people love to golf. You know, a lot of people in my family love to golf. But golf courses, as you mentioned, are not good for the environment. Why not?
Yeah. Well, you know, it's a combination of the nutrients we put on them, nitrogen and phosphorus, that gets into our water supply. That takes carbon to make those fertilizers, so super carbon intensive. Our largest crop as a country is lawn. And lawn is really not good in terms of the inputs we put on it, in terms of the carbon emissions. So I have some lawn. I'll admit most of us do, but golf courses in particular, just the mowing regimen, the nutrients, it's not great.
One thing about lawns, this isn't really in our list of things, but okay. I know that some people have turned their lawns into clover.
Yes, clover's better. Even just not fertilizing and putting pesticides on.
By the way, excuse me, when she says I know some people,
does she mean?
She means I'm thinking of doing it.
You should
Could
do
you give me guidance about
because I've been a crusader against all these fertilizers on lawns
there's
down
no
the Cape.
May as well.
No May is a big one because people don't realize. I think a lot of places don't realize that if you're close to the water or the ocean, you are polluting
right into the water.
Right into the water. Nantucket actually banned a lot of these fertilizers there because they were polluting Nantucket Sound. It's a big problem in lakes down the Cape.
Yes.
But if you don't, some lakes just lawns just turn into clover.
Yeah,
it's kind of miraculous.
If you don't fertilize your lawn and you kind of let it go and maybe you don't cut it as much, a lot of different flowers will come up through it, whether
really
it's clover or veronicas or speedwell, other things. But that diversity in your lawn is actually much better for pollinators and other insects as well.
You know, Katie, since we've moved a little bit off the side, since you're a big shot in your field, let's ask you a question. And I would like not to be interrupted during this question, please.
Okay.
There is a woman.
Interrupt more.
No, I think. Excuse me.
Thank you, Katie. Thank you very much.
This? Okay, no, I'm done. Thank you. Okay, so there's a woman who lives in Brookline who shall remain unnamed. She has a little sidewalk, as we learned to call. You know the thing between the sidewalk and the street, that little patch of thing, which she does not own.
No, the town owns it.
Thank you very much.
I have dogs, so I know this.
Okay, fine.
Yeah.
There is a plant or two that this unnamed woman planted there, and a woman of good faith, another woman, is walking down the street in Brookline, Her dog does what every dog in the history of the world does, walks over to the plants and starts to pee.
That's right.
And this other unnamed woman in Brookline starts yelling at the dog owner, saying, "Do not have your..." Excuse me. Don't pee on my thing that I don't even own. So what's your position on this as a professional?
How about as a dog owner?
Okay, as a dog owner.
I have 2 dogs.
Perfect.
As a professional,
and a dog owner.
The town owns the strip.
They do.
Thank you.
However, as a dog owner, I do try to keep my dog off of the ones where people have gardens.
Thank you. It's the polite thing to do.
I'm so sorry.
This just happened to me again, right before it started to rain. I'm right there getting into my car, and some woman comes again, and the plants are like coming up now with the flowers.
Yeah.
Great.
Right. Dog pees right in the plants.
I don't garden mine because I think about all of the other people whose dogs have.
Well, maybe you should think of that too, Marjorie.
And I said to her, those are my plants, and she said, "Well, it's going to rain soon."
Listen to you. Okay, Katie, the other
soon.
thing you dread, I think, that I ask you every time. Actually, this is a good thing. I ask you about greenheads every time, and you look whatever. And the other thing that's actually fabulous that you did a few years ago, can you explain the parking thing? Because for those of us who used to go to Crane Beach and places like that, the greatest inhibitor was not the greenheads, was the notion you're going to be in line till Tuesday, or maybe not get in at all. What'd you guys do?
Yeah, so with COVID, we put in time ticketing, which has helped avoid the lines. Now we have eliminated the ability to reserve under a permit for days and days and sort of take up other people's space so that it's a more equal access opportunity. And so you get a discount with your membership now. You make a reservation the day of. What we've discovered now is that things have gone back to normal a bit more after COVID. And so we're able to do drive-up visits on Monday through Thursday now, where we used to do time ticketing. So we're making adjustments as we see these things move, but in general, it makes accessing Crane a lot easier.
And the time ticketing thing can be done online.
The time ticketing can be done online.
Okay,
yep.
Great.
Yep.
Okay.
I have one more question. I wonder, in your world of trying to take care of the environment and keeping these spaces pristine, what's the plan? Are we all supposed to mobilize by the thousands for Bill McKibben's next event? I think it's in September or something.
Yeah.
What are we supposed to do?
Yeah, I think raising our voices at the state level to our Congress people is certainly important. But many of us can do this work on the ground here, even when the federal government is not doing what they should be doing. And so we have our new strategic plan calls us to quintuple the pace of land conservation we've been doing. So we're going towards 12,000 acres in the next 5 years, which in Massachusetts is huge. But we're seeing that turnover of land. We're going to be deploying climate solutions throughout our portfolio, really looking at building resilience, reducing emissions, and we're enhancing and elevating the stewardship of these landscapes. We've also just stepped in and helped to save TerraCore, a program that lost AmeriCorps funding.
Yes. Tell us what that is before you go.
Yeah, so the TerraCore program, it's a wonderful nonprofit organization that trains young people to work at land conservation and nonprofits across Massachusetts and Rhode Island. They recently lost all of their money from AmeriCorps, under the Trump cuts.
Which is a great volunteer program. All across the country.
And so we've been able to find funding. We're stepping in. We're going to fund them through the end of the year, and then we're going to be raising money to try to make up the gap. And I would say that's another big thing too in this moment. Obviously, we can't take up the slack from the federal government forever. But the environment as a cause only gets 2 to 3% of philanthropy globally. And it's our one and only home. So I think really building support in this interim period
is a big deal.
Important.
Okay, in 30 seconds, people go to your website, find out. Give us a sampling of the kinds of summer programs that are available through you guys.
So we have everything from summer camps across the Commonwealth. We still have availability on the North Shore, up at Crane, where we take adventurers out on the beach all day. It's wonderful to go and see the kids and how much they enjoy this. We have art programs at DeCordova Sculpture Park, other locations. We have 2 exhibitions opening up. So Nature Sanctuary at DeCordova in June is a all-woman exhibition really talking about the connection between nature and home. And we have a shaker exhibit at Fruitland's Museum for the 250th. We have cooking classes, we have hiking, we have...
And all this stuff is on the website.
All this stuff is on the website.
Trustees,
hundreds of programs.
thetrustees.org.
Yes.
Okay.
Katie, it's great
thank
to
you
see
so
you
much.
as always.
Thank you for having me.
Okay.
Our pleasure.
Yes.
We've been speaking with Katie Theoharides, President and CEO of the Trustees of Reservations. And again, the website, don't forget thetrustees.org. Coming up after a quick break, just enough time for two more things. You're listening to Boston Public Radio 89.7 GBH, streaming on youtube.com/GBH News and broadcasting from the Boston Public Library.
This week on Under the Radar with Callie Crossley, 5 years ago, George Floyd, an unarmed black Minnesota man, was killed by a white police officer. Millions of Americans witnessed the murder live-streamed. His death sparked protests and promises. Did anything really change? That's Under the Radar with me, Callie Crossley, Sunday night at 6 here on 89.7 GBH and the GBH app.
Support for our programs comes from you.
And the law firm of Davis Malm. Knowing the lay of the land, not just the law. Learn more at davismalm.com. Davis Malm. Lean, agile, strategic. And the Lyric Stage, presenting Hello, Dolly. Brimming with classic musical theater tunes, endearing characters, and good humor, Hello, Dolly is on stage May 16th through June 22nd at Lyric Stage Boston. Ticket information at lyricstage.com.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie Egan, Jim Browning. Marjorie won't be able to talk because Katie brought her some sweet food, and she's going to be eating it.
I know they're
what are they?
All natural cosmetics, Jim.
Oh, cosmetics!
I'm
I
gonna
thought
look
it was
like a different person next week.
Well, we'll decide that this time. Okay, we're live at the library. That's fabulous. So streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. It's time for two more things, and you're going to start.
Well, I'm going to start. You know, there's this great U.S. District Judge, William G. Young. I love this. On Thursday, yesterday that would be, he questioned a government lawyer how the Trump administration defines DEI. Because as the judge said, this was talking to the government attorney, when you say to me DEI as though that's bad, I don't understand what that means. He was telling this federal attorney who wanted the judge to dismiss a lawsuit to seek funding cuts in the National Institutes of Health. I mean, basically saying, what has DEI got to do with research on cancer and heart disease and ALS and Alzheimer's and all these things? So he asked the government lawyer, the judge says, somebody's going to help me on that. Somebody's going to help me on that. What does that mean? And he says, does that mean if you don't like DEI, which they've never really defined, and that's diversity, equity, inclusion, the judge says, well, if you don't like diversity, equity, inclusion, quote, does that mean our policy is homogeneity, inequity, and exclusion? I mean, you're going to stand there and tell me this is now the policy of the National Institutes of Health? And he makes a great point that they're using DEI and anti-Semitism to cover everything, to cover all these sins. And I was glad the judge made a fool of this attorney, and I wish more judges. Actually, a lot of judges lately have been very tough.
What were they? Tell me, what were they? Was this a cancellation of research grants? Is that what you said?
It was about a halt funding to the National Institutes of Health. As we all know, this is what the Trump administration is doing. A lot of us are concerned about things like cancer and heart disease and diabetes and COVID, sickness and health. And the only person that's dealing with this is that I would say, much of a lunatic, RFK Jr., who's blaming children's childhood health problems on vaccines.
Okay.
Well, not just vaccines, to be fair, junk food and other things. But he's not really living on planet Earth.
He's trying to figure out the difference between Medicare and Medicaid. When he does, he'll be a lot better. So a senator from Oregon referred to an event last night, I love this line, as the Mount Everest of corruption, which is a pretty good line. And what he was talking, well, let me ask you a question first.
Yes.
Are foreign nationals allowed to contribute to political campaigns in America?
No, I don't think so.
Well, legally they are not, but there's a workaround.
Oh, there's a workaround. I did not know that.
You can thank that great problem solver, Donald Trump. Last night was the dinner for all the crypto people.
Yeah.
And if you invested a lot of money in his crypto,
Right.
Strump,
Yes.
for example,
Right.
and the top investor was $40 million, this guy's son, a Chinese billionaire, you got invited to this a dinner. So, and the beauty of this is when you contribute to a political campaign legally and you're a citizen of this country, I mean, you're not a foreign national, your name is disclosed.
Right.
So foreign nationals who can't give to his campaign gave millions and millions to his crypto.
Right.
Do we know their names?
We don't know any
We
of
do
their
not.
names.
They're not. We know some
I
of their
was
names.
surprised you knew that guy's name.
Well, it's only because it's reported in the New York Times because he wasn't shy. It gets
Okay.
better than this. Of course, Carolyn Levitt, who's the whatever she is, the spokesperson,
Right.
says it's absurd for anyone to insinuate this president is profiting off this presidency.
Yeah.
Okay,
Did
fine.
she have the big cross around her neck when
She
she
did.
said that?
And it gets better than this.
Mhm.
One of the attendees told a reporter explicitly, this is in the New York Times, that the only reason they purchased the crypto was because they would have an opportunity to be with Trump and influence his decision-making on U.S. financial regulations, none of which you can do as a foreign national through your contributions otherwise. So through the back door, Trump makes another several $1 million, maybe as much as $1 billion. His wealth has gone up $3 billion since he was president the first time in this total a workaround through the back door contribution system that would otherwise be legal. And let me end where I began. As the Oregon senator said, the Mount Everest of corruption. It is amazing. And by the way, Eric Trump, apparently one of his sons, was apparently unwilling to defend. He didn't criticize it, unwilling to defend this himself, because he even apparently thought it was a scam too far.
He did?
Well, he didn't say it, but he wouldn't defend it.
Wow.
Mount Everest of
what's going to happen
corruption.
to Eric?
Yeah, I don't even know who Eric is. What do you mean? Eric who?
I've never seen him before.
Eric?
No, he's going to be deported. Pretty soon we're all going to be deported. There'll be nobody left.
Okay, fine.
Okay, coming up after the 1 o'clock. I just hope I go to a nice country.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
That's all I hope.
Yeah.
Coming up after the 1 o'clock news, our Friday media analysis segment, Press Play. We're going to talk with GBH's Adam Riley and the Boston Globe's Lila Alphonse. We're going to talk about major corporate media kind of knuckling under to Donald Trump and the impact of TikTok algorithms on the election. You're listening to Boston Public Radio, streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
Support GBH? Unlock all NPR Plus podcasts, like the Sunday Puzzle podcast, and enjoy exclusive perks like early access and bonus episodes from some of your favorite shows. Learn more at gbh.org/NPR Plus.
Support for GBH comes from you.
And MIT Federal Credit Union, helping members achieve their financial goals with savings account options, including high-yield money market accounts. Membership info and more at mitfcu.org. Federally insured by NCUA, and the Omni Boston Hotel at the Seaport, helping plan weekend trips with accommodations, weekly jazz nights, a 24-hour art gallery, and a range of amenities. More information at omnibostonhotel.com.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Jim Browdy, head on Hour 3 of BPR Live from the BPL. It's our weekly media analysis segment, Press Play, with GBH's Adam Riley and the Boston Globe's Lila Alphonse. We'll talk about new claims of a media cover-up around Biden's health on the heels of a new book with pretty damning allegations, plus the Atlantic's reporting on an apparent act of self-censorship from our own PBS. And I'm still Jim Browdy, filling in for Marjorie Egan. Again, she'll be here. Oh, she is here. She will be here in any case. She's not here while we tape these because she's at the dentist. So we'll end the show with that. Her emergency trip to the dentist this morning got us all thinking about the nightmare that is modern dentistry. But not for me. Why does it feel like some dentists take an oath of harm when every other doctor takes an oath to do no harm? And when is the best time to floss, to brush, generally take care of your teeth before or after breakfast? Weigh in next on the third hour of BPR 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library.
Live from NPR News in Washington, I'm Lakshmi Singh. A federal judge is blocking the Department of Homeland Security from prohibiting international student enrollment at Harvard University. NPR's Alyssa Nadworny says the Ivy League school sued the government today on constitutional grounds.
In a statement, Harvard said the action was unlawful. They called it retaliatory and said it threatened serious harm to the Harvard community and our country. Harvard is already suing the Trump administration over research funding cuts related to accusations of anti-Semitism on campus, and that trial is set to start in July.
NPR's Alyssa Nadworny reporting. The Trump administration has been demanding that Harvard turn over all of its records on its foreign student body. Harvard says the Trump administration's latest action has caused university-wide turmoil for thousands of students just days before graduation. Congressional Democrats are introducing a bill that would shift control of the U.S. Marshal Service from the Justice Department to the federal courts. NPR's Carrie Johnson reports on concern that the marshals may be caught in a power struggle.
Congressman Eric Swalwell of California worries the Trump administration could order the Marshals Service not to enforce a court order or remove security protection from judges who ruled against the White House. That's why he and other Democrats in Congress are trying to move the Marshals Service out of the chain of command at the Justice Department and under the wing of Chief Justice John Roberts and the policymaking body of the federal courts. This year, judges have faced violent threats and calls for impeachment because they've ruled against President Trump and the DOJ team remaking the government. The courts have asked for an increase in security funding to help confront those threats. Carrie Johnson, NPR News, Washington.
U.S. stocks are trading lower this hour after President Trump threatened new tariffs on European imports and iPhones. The Dow's down 250 points. NPR's Scott Horsley has the latest.
In what's become a familiar pattern, President Trump took to social media this morning with new tariff threats, sparking a sell-off in the stock market. Trump says trade talks with the European Union are going nowhere, so he's threatening to impose a 50% tax on imports from Europe starting next month. The president's also threatening to slap a 25% tax on iPhones unless Apple agrees to build the devices in the United States. Smartphones and other electronics have so far gotten a pass in Trump's trade war. Stocks were already under pressure this week as the bond market recoiled from rising government debt. Higher bond yields lead to higher borrowing costs. Mortgage rates inched up this week to 6.86%. Scott Horsley, NPR News, Washington.
The Dow Jones Industrial Average down 246 points, roughly 0.5% at 41,615. The S&P's down 38. The Nasdaq is down 169. This is NPR News.
Good afternoon with the latest from the GBH newsroom in Boston. I'm Craig Lamolt. As you've been hearing on NPR, a Boston federal judge has temporarily blocked the Trump administration's move to stop the university from enrolling international students. The judge's decision in response to a lawsuit from Harvard comes less than 24 hours after the Department of Homeland Security told the school it could no longer sponsor foreign students and scholars. Carl Tobias teaches law at the University of Richmond, and he says the government would have a hard time explaining the effort in court.
It looks pretty obvious that the administration's just targeted the university. And there's already the bigger suit that was filed earlier. And then this eviscerates the international aspect of what Harvard does so well, bringing in the best people from the world.
Harvard says the administration's decision is arbitrary and violates the First Amendment. International students make up a quarter of the school's enrollment. You can expect heavy traffic this afternoon as drivers hit the road for Memorial Day. GBH's Jeremy Siegel has more.
Analysts were expecting people to get an early start on the long weekend, but yesterday's weather had other plans in mind.
So when we produced our forecast, we were saying Thursday afternoon between 1 and 9 p.m. would be the worst day to travel. And Thursday ended up being really a washout.
Mark Shieldrop of AAA Northeast says after the rain, they're now predicting rush hour today to be the worst.
Overall, we expect more than 1 million folks to travel in or out or through Massachusetts, and that could very well set a record.
Shieldrop says return traffic will be busiest Monday afternoon and early evening. Jeremy Siegel, GBH News.
Clouds and showers today, highs in the 50s. This is GBH.
Support for NPR comes from Subaru. The new Forester Hybrid offers symmetrical all-wheel drive and up to 581 miles per tank. Part of the new Forester Hybrid family of SUVs. More at Subaru.com/Forester Hybrid. This is NPR.
Welcome to hour number 3 of Boston Public Radio. Jim Brady and Marjorie Egan. Thank you very much. We are broadcasting live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News. We're on tape on Memorial Day, but we're going to be back here on Tuesday at the library. We're going to talk with the president of Assumption University, Greg Weiner. The mayor of Boston, Michelle Wu, will be with us on Wednesday, also here at the library. Hello again, Jim.
Yeah, but when you say on tape, we should say it's a great show. It's some of the best interviews we've done recently, so
really,
people
really
should check. You are really incorrigible. In any case.
Perfect show.
All right, it's time again for our weekly media analysis segment, Press Play. We're joined now by Lila Alphonse, who we haven't seen in a while, the Boston Globe's Rhode Island and Globe, New Hampshire editor. Lila, it's great to see you again.
Thanks for having me
Thanks
back.
for being here. Also here, we have seen him fairly recently, but it's nice to see him again, is GBH politics reporter Adam Riley. Hello, Adam. How are you?
Hey, you too.
Great to have you.
Great to have you here. So we talked a lot about corporate media sort of bend a knee to Donald Trump, and it looks like CBS is going to be the next person to fall. Wendy McMahon resigned on Monday after the guy that was the big wig at 60 Minutes resigned. What do you think is going to happen here? And explain the problem. Lila.
Part of me thinks it's kind of futile. So I know they want to make the merger as smooth as possible. They're trying to remove any obstacles. She may have objected to any sort of capitulation or agreement with Trump. I don't know whether it actually matters in the long run. You've seen a lot of big corporations bend the knee, and then the administration does what they were going to do anyway.
Screws them anyway.
Right. So I'm watching it, and I'm wondering, is she taking kind of a moral stance? I will not stand for this, so I will resign. Or was she pushed out because then the road might be smoother, and they're hoping without hope that things will go the way they want it to.
And we should make clear, we discussed this a lot, but in case you missed this story, situation where Shari Redstone, a big shareholder of Paramount that owns CBS News, is hoping the Trump administration is going to approve a deal that they need to approve for her to make hundreds of millions of dollars.
Right.
And the connection is being made, which I think is totally fair, that as a result, she's putting pressure on CBS News to be nicer to Donald Trump.
And by the way, she's a really wealthy woman, obviously, and I always remember driving out to her father's house. Was it Needham or Newton or one of those end suburbs? It was like a modest little ranch house that he had for his whole life, but I guess she needs more money than he did.
See, the reason I think, Adam, this is the biggest disaster as it has potential to be, is not even so much because CBS News is such a revered institution for decades, but also it, to me, says to the small and not very powerful news operations, if CBS News, if the Washington Post editorial page, if the LA Times, on, can't fight, then it's hopeless for you. What's your reaction to this whole mess?
Yeah, it does. And this is also, they're trying to make the merger happen, and they're trying to make the $20 billion lawsuit brought by President Trump over that Kamala Harris interview, which he maintains was inappropriately edited. As far as I can tell, they adhered to all the traditional standards of TV interview editing when they put it together. They're trying to make that go away. And yeah, that's an incredibly chilling.
Go away by paying Trump a ton of money, like ABC did with Stephanopoulos' characterization of Trump having, quote, raped rather than sexually abused E. Jean Carroll.
So yeah, if you can be threatened with, think about that, $20 billion.
Yeah.
$20 billion, that boggles the mind. So in one sense, I really can't fault CBS for trying to make it go away. But it's true. If you're a news outlet of modest means, it's an incredibly chilling message to get.
And, we mentioned the other day that ABC, owned by Disney, the head of Disney was talking to the people on The View, saying tone it down a little bit. And in all fairness, we have to talk about our own house. PBS, according to a story in The Atlantic, American Masters was doing this piece, Art Spiegelman, Disaster is My Muse. And 2 weeks before it was about to air on PBS, people making the film got a call and were told that a Spiegelman's reference to Donald Trump, his own words, as, quote, his smug and ugly mug, had to be taken out of the documentary or there'd be no documentary. And while in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's nearly as serious as what we're talking about with CBS and what ABC did with Stephanopoulos, it's further indication that Trump has the ability to cow almost everybody he chooses to cow.
And there's still no guarantee that cowing will
get you anything.
Want.
Yeah.
The thing about The View that really struck me is you had the executive telling the 5 female co-hosts of The View that they should do more of the celebrity entertainment news that does well for an audience that's mostly women, ages 25 to 52.
Right.
It felt very much like let's cut to the segment on babies and puppies.
That's right.
And so I found that kind of annoying and surprising. The PBS thing, I have a litmus test for stuff like that before I get outraged. And one is, are they asking to cut fact or opinion? And the other is, would people still be mad if it was being said about Obama? And in this case, I'm not sure we'd be talking about it if it was being said about Obama and they cut it. And it wasn't like he said, cut this part about being a convicted felon, which is fact. So I'm less outraged about the PBS attempt to keep the road smooth than I am about the ABC and CBS ones.
By the way, as am I, but it speaks to the unbelievable power that Trump has over press freedom, even if it's a modest kind of thing, and the willingness of people to give in. Even as you say, and everybody said the same thing, there is no evidence that giving in gets you anything except another bullying demand down the line. You know?
Yeah, I was going to say for the 5th time in this conversation.
Do it again.
It's not going to matter. PBS is on the hot seat, NPR is on the hot seat, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting is on the hot seat. None of that's going to change because they get rid of Art Spiegelman saying smug and ugly mug about Donald Trump. And yet...
Marjorie hates when I repeat the same thing every day, so I'll do it quickly. My deepest concern, when The Atlantic exposes something minor, comparatively speaking, or other news outlets expose something major, like the CBS likely capitulation of the ABC News capitulation. I don't mean just The View. I mean the thing with Stephanopoulos. At least we know what we're getting. My greatest fear, where we get different opinions from people in journalism, I always reference Marty Barron, who says, essentially, don't worry about it yet, and Chuck Todd says, worry about it a lot, that people like, I don't mean you personally, people who report on the news, not editorialists, even if they're not told by a boss, and I know we haven't been told, we've specifically had these discussions, we've been told, do what you've always been doing, that's why you're here, which we can't tell you how much that means to us, and I hope it means that much to listeners too. I worry there are a lot of people who aren't even told by a boss, you got to tone it down, who believe the message in the air is you do have to tone it down, both for the institution and for your own survival. Do you worry about that?
I do worry about that, and I think it's the sort of thing that you can end up doing even without thinking it through entirely consciously.
I agree with that.
All this is just hovering in the back of your brain, and you can find yourself pulling punches, avoiding certain phrases.
Without maybe even knowing that you're doing it, right?
Exactly.
So how do you worry about that too?
I think you internalize it. You start to self-censor a little bit. You worry about avoiding conflict. No one wants their editor to tell them take something out of your story. You just hate it. I hate it. And so I think you start taking it out by yourself. But I think at some point, especially in this environment, you also wonder what the long-term implications are. Like, is there going to be a lawsuit? Are you going to be under attack? Is someone going to flag your name on a list? If you've been studying history, you know we've been there before. And so I think people tend to feel defensive about being in the journalism industry and tend to try to keep themselves safe, maybe by self-censoring before they're actually told to change anything.
There's one other point worth highlighting about The View being told to move away from political stuff and to do more light, celebrity-oriented segments. I hadn't realized when I started reading about this situation, I thought, well, maybe there's a case to be made for them not alienating half of the electorate. Maybe their ratings are down. Maybe there's a commercial argument here that deserves to be considered. But they're the top-rated show of their type, so it's not like this formula isn't working. It's really, again, preemptive self-censorship.
And when you think Barbara Walters used to be the host of The View, and there was a lot of hardball politics going on when she was there, and Whoopi Goldberg's been there for a long time, and she did a lot of hardball politics, so they certainly haven't shied away from it before, at least my sense of what's going on.
And they had politicians on as guests. Trump was on it. Trump himself was on it multiple times.
Not always to the politicians' benefit. I mean, you can make a case that Kamala Harris saying she couldn't think of anything she would do differently than Joe Biden as being one of the decisive blows struck against
that's a great point.
That is
one of the
really
texters just said, didn't Mark Zuckerberg counter the administration as still went after him. They're talking about the suit against him involving Instagram. And Mark Zuckerberg, as you know, gave money to Trump, who was at the inauguration and all that kind of stuff. And he was looking down the dress.
I was just going to say, I can't believe you didn't mention that.
What do you call that outfit she wore? A bralette or something like that?
No, a bralette is what Jordan Hudson was wearing in the photograph. It's not a bralette.
It's not a bralette. Anyway, Jeff Bezos'
it was lingerie.
girlfriend, she looked like she had a bra with no shirt on. Well, she did have a bra with no shirt
Probably.
on. Yeah, okay. Anyway, so Jim, speaking of what you don't like, and you don't like this either.
What's that?
Well, before the election, I was listening to a lot of these, the so-called manosphere, the Joe Rogan Experience, Theo Vaughn, his show, these comedians that have these podcasts, which millions and millions and millions of particularly young men listen to, and I think it had a lot to do with Trump winning, because you could spend hours listening to these guys all day long, and a lot of them are very, it's not necessarily always conservative, but they were great forums for Trump. He really did great on Theo Vaughn's show and Joe Rogan's show. Well, anyway, Media Matters has done this piece that shows that they interacted, as they put it, with these 5 popular right-leaning comedy podcasters, and they call themselves comedy podcasters. TikTok's For You page recommendation changes. The algorithm capitulates to take you down this right-wing rabbit hole in a matter of just a few hours, where you'll see things like these wild claims that Michael Jackson uncovered secrets of a dark network involving high-ranking politicians and minors, and implies that he was killed because of this knowledge, and these real crazy things in a matter of hours. And this is where millions of people get their news now, social media and podcasters like this. I think it's a big problem.
It was a really interesting look at the way an algorithm like this can work. What I missed, and you can all tell me if I read right past it, what I missed was any discussion of whether you get similar amplifying effects when you're looking at other types of material. Like if they had interacted with, baseball analysts for the same amount of time, same number of clicks, would their content have been amplified accordingly? I don't think the study got into that. Do you know what I mean?
The study didn't get into it, but it's
baseball analyst is different than talking about Donald Trump.
But this is the way TikTok works. I mean, I watched 3 clips of Law and Order SVU, and then 4 clips of The Handmaid's Tale, and now my feed is entirily Marissa Hargitay and Margaret Atwood.
Do you watch a lot of SVU? I find myself pathetically watching hours of it at a time. Once I watched one, I've watched 5.
I don't. A clip grabbed me. I was honestly scrolling TikTok to see what my artist daughter had posted as her latest process video, and I was like, oh, that's really horrible. Oh, that one is too. Why am I only seeing this stuff now? So it's doing exactly what it was designed to do, and that's why it was so dangerous. It is so dangerous for teenagers and young adults, because you look up one pro-Anna thing, for example, and all of a sudden pro-anorexic stuff is in your feed. You look up, one Joe Rogan clip so you can finish an argument on a different platform, and a few hours later you're being served up more and more and more and more of that. I think, Adam, you're right, that if you started looking up very, very left-wing arguments and clips on TikTok, you'd get a lot more stuff. It's working to keep you in your confirmation bubble and not feed you information. It's all about confirmation.
What's your artist daughter do?
She's a painter and a college student at Middlebury College.
That's fabulous. Can we move on to something? One of the reasons why I'm fond of I like all our staff people, Zoe, is because when she gets stuck on something, you can't get her off it, which I love, because I get stuck on so many things I almost can't breathe. The latest thing that she is stuck on is the names of legislation. And she focused on the fact that all of us, I think we were less guilty for once. The big, beautiful bill. We, I think, tried every time to say, which was factually inaccurate, we didn't know, as Trump calls it, the big, beautiful bill. I didn't know till 2 days ago that it was actually called the big, beautiful bill.
Yeah.
And then now it is if it becomes law, it's the big, beautiful bill act. And Zoe gave us another example. I said, how many examples of that are there? I said, how about the Patriot Act? We all called it the Patriot Act at the time. What is it?
Anti-Semitism.
Well, that's not a bill, though. I mean,
no, but it's
using the term that's used by the right.
Assuming that that Trump is going after all these different places because of anti-Semitism, which I think we know now is not true.
So don't we have a responsibility not to fall prey to that again, for once we fell less prey to it, but a lot of our colleagues would say Trump's big, beautiful bill is going to get a vote today. You were ready to jump too, so go, Adam. You go first.
I think if you're not going to use the official names for legislation crafted by Republicans, you can't use the official name crafted by Democrats.
Oh, I
either.
totally agree.
So you can't go with American Rescue Plan. You can't go with Affordable Care Act, or you can say, flag it once, say something like the so-called big, beautiful bill, or the so-called Affordable Care Act, and then you describe it in your own terms afterward.
But isn't that an obligation? If you do it at all, you have to do it like every time, because you are framing. I mean, as absurd as it sounds, because I think most people who listen to the show dig a little bit more deeply, but for those who don't, if you keep calling it a big, beautiful bill, particularly from people who are not fond of Trump, then maybe it's a big, beautiful bill.
It ends up being free advertising for exactly what they want. They get to frame it the way they want. And I think politicians on both sides have been doing this for a while. How many bizarre acronyms are there for bills that spell out something like Patriot or Save or Service or whatever?
If Ad Markey were here, we could ask him.
And we could ask him. He would know.
He's expert
He
at
would
that.
know.
He is, yes.
But we can't really say so-called if it's literally its name. But we can say the full name of it, and then I don't think people remember the full name. Big, beautiful bill really means nothing. So I think it's worth it to describe what's in it instead.
Of course. But you also say, if you say it's the name of the bill, named by the sponsors, the people who support the contents of this thing, as opposed to it being a journalist description.
I think it's easy to fall back on just repeating the same things over and over. And I think we need to remember that it's important to offer context each time. It could be the first time a reader stumbled upon your story. Doesn't mean they've read everything else or anything else. So having that context, who filed the bill, why it's called what it is, can be really important.
I want to say one other thing, by the way, in response to what you said, Adam. The difference, and you're totally right, if you're going to do it for Republicans, do it for Democrats. Democrats don't have nearly the skills that Republicans do in terms of marketing legislation. Like the Inflation Reduction Act. What was the most important thing? The largest investment in climate in the history of the world. Would anybody know that had anything to do with climate?
Well, that was a big mistake.
No.
It was a big mistake to call it the Inflation Reduction Act. So all everybody kept saying is, where's the Inflation Reduction?
Doge, another good. I think Jamie just sent us in. Doge, another classic example.
Yeah.
It's one thing called Doge, but Department of Government Efficiency is really playing into their
there
hands.
There is a
massive
you're clear. Branding gulf between the two.
There's a branding gulf.
Branding gulf.
There really is. That's a good line.
Yeah, and it also would be nice if the branding were closer to reality. If there were the truth in the branding, that would be. I wouldn't have so much trouble if it were a true thing as opposed to not a true thing.
Well, Big Beautiful Bill is remarkable because it's post-truth. I mean, what even is that? It's the most subjective, squishy character as a big, beautiful bill.
Yeah. You know what they should? Marjorie's basically saying it should have been named give something to the rich and screw everybody else. That would have been a fair, is that what you're saying? A fair description of legislation.
I think the biggest transfer of wealth in the history of the United States could have been a good.
So what would that acronym be?
Yeah, well, that's what I would call it, the transfer of wealth bill to billionaires and millionaires.
No, it slips right off your tongue. It does, exactly.
But I wanted to talk to you guys about the book that's come out, Jake Tapper and
Original Sin.
Yes, Original Sin. Talks about the cover-up of Biden's health problems. How much of this is reporters' faults, and how much of this is the Democratic operatives' faults? I mean, how do we do the journalism on this one? You want to start, Lila?
That's a really tough question, I think, because hindsight's 20/20. It's super easy now from where we are to go like, oh yeah, that was bad and that was happening and we didn't acknowledge it. And it's also easy to kind of cast about and figure out who to blame at this point because you can pick any name out of a hat. I think that there was a fair amount of not wanting it to be true, and so it didn't get reported. There was a lot of bending over backwards to try to explain away what people were starting to see more and more often. But whether it's the Democratic operatives successfully pushing one narrative or reporters not willing to see it, not willing to dig deep, maybe fearful of what could happen if they were right. It's hard for me to pick one side now.
Yeah.
This conversation reminds me of an event that I covered. It was at Logan Airport. President Biden made an appearance. Is it Terminal E? Is that the
red one?
National one?
Yeah. So he made an appearance there to tout. It might have been the Inflation Reduction Act, but it was legislative victories. And at the very beginning of the appearance, he was talking incredibly softly, quietly. You couldn't really understand what he was saying. It sounded like he was kind of trying to work the crowd, but he didn't sound strong. He sounded weak. And then all of a sudden, it was like a switch flipped, and he came out very forceful, hot, giving a stump speech about all the things his administration had accomplished, and why we were standing here, how this was a testament to work they'd done on the legislation in question. And I'm not sure I'm doing justice to what a surreal contrast it was between pre-switch flipped Biden and post-switch flipped Biden. And I made no effort to capture that in my coverage of the event. And in retrospect, I'm pretty sure that I was watching him maybe before the prompter got switched on, and he was just trying to riff and wing it. But it was a very strange experience, one of the strangest experiences I've had watching a political figure. And I wonder how many other regional reporters around the country who don't see Biden, who didn't see Biden on a daily basis, I wonder how many other people saw things like that and thought it was really odd, but just didn't know what to do with it.
What was your thought process? I mean, you think a lot about your work, and I don't mean that others don't, but I admire that in your reporting. Did you think and decide not to share it, or it didn't even occur to you that it was newsworthy?
I literally didn't know what to make of it. I thought, this is bizarre.
Why not just say it then and make nothing of it, except let the consumer make something of it?
In retrospect, that would have been what to do with it. I think that I simply was so, and this is a lame excuse, but I was just so befuddled by what I'd just seen. And then you kind of forget about, okay, well, what do we have here that's usable? Pull out the best quotes you can get, file for radio, file for the web, or whatever. But yeah, I wish I'd found some way of highlighting this massive difference in energy and forcefulness that was very much on display.
We only have a minute left, but can I say something about, I think it was Ivana Abraham wrote this. Somebody wrote this in the Globe about, if we're talking about his cognitive situation, Biden's, why are we not talking about Trump's? I have to say that while occasionally we more than occasionally mention this, I am of the belief that there is a president with serious mental illness. I am not a doctor, as we're supposed to say. And I haven't spoken, we've actually spoken to some of the shrinks who were part of that 27 psychiatrist book that we was running
Narcissistic
the first
personality
time.
disorder.
And we talked to a lot of our journalism guests about why they don't mention more frequently some things that are so out of bounds for a normal human being. I don't just mean unkind, but so wacky, it's unbelievable. But I don't think that we do adequate coverage of the excesses that may not just be attributable to being an autocrat of Donald Trump, Adam.
I agree with you.
Okay.
I think we shift the bar. I think we did it.
What do you mean by that?
I think we did it during the first administration, too. Remember, he'd come up and say something, and everyone would be like, oh, that's the end of his fascism.
That's right.
The end of his fascism.
That is totally
and
true.
then by like a few months in, the bar was set at act presidential sometimes. And even when that didn't get met, we would still kind of ignore it, kind of excuse it, kind of be like, oh, it's just Trump being Trump. Now, the bar is set at a place where the Homeland Security Secretary can post on Twitter the words, suck it, when a lawsuit gets dismissed, or
the president can repeatedly say that we're going to annex Canada.
Exactly. Yeah. Or the president's son can mischaracterize the former first lady's doctorate and make up a new stage of cancer while attacking a cancer patient. And we're like, oh yeah, that's just them being them. So we keep resetting the bar, I think, with what is normal and looking at it as what is normal in this bubble. And I wish that we could just have a set of standards that we go, well, this is no longer normal.
Well, we're both big fans of Margaret Sullivan, and I think while responsible people like you two, and I hope like us, are trying hard to figure out exactly how to do this right, I think it's fair to say that we have not, as an industry, quite figured out how to cover Donald Trump, even 122 days in round two. You're both great. It's great to see you both. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thanks
for having us.
Really appreciate it.
We've been speaking with GBA's political reporter Adam Riley and Lila Alphonse, the editor of the Boston Globe's Rhode Island and New Hampshire branches, for our weekly press play segment. Adam and Lila, thank you very much.
Thanks, you too.
Coming up after a quick break, inspired by my recent trip to the dentist, we're talking about we're opening the phone and text lines and asking about your dental life. The dentist and you. When is the best time to floss, brush, generally take care of your teeth? Are you a dentist? Would you like to be a dentist? Would you like to look at people's mouths all day long? That's next. Boston Public Radio, 89.7 GBH, live from the Boston Public Library and streaming at youtube.com/GBH News.
It's been 5 years since a Minneapolis police officer murdered George Floyd.
This looks like we're still stuck in a rut. We're not doing anything to try to fix some of the issues. I don't see that being a good thing, especially 5 years later.
I'm Ari Shapiro. How the community of South Minneapolis is reckoning with its past and future on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And Porter Square Books, with Daniel Joseph Gonzalez presenting The Rise and Fall of Boston Pride, about Boston's long history of LGBTQ+ activism and community. May 29th at 7. Info at portersquarebooks.com. And Wheelock Family Theater, presenting the Broadway musical The Prom, a joyful celebration of the power of being yourself, told through humor, heart, and songs. Now through June 8th. WheelockFamilyTheater.org.
Welcome back to Boston Public Radio. Marjorie and Jim Browdy live at the library, streaming youtube.com/GBH News. Best of show on Monday because it's a holiday. We're back here Tuesday, Wednesday. The mayor's with us for an hour. We're getting a lot of texts about Abdullah and Leo, who are the two international students we interviewed at the top of the show. One from Sweden, one from Pakistan. Abdullah is also co-chair of the student body at Harvard. Those are already online, or they will be soon, at gbhnews.org. They were both spectacular. If you care about this issue, and there is a temporary restraining order against the Department of Homeland Security in terms of international students, but if you want to hear two smart, committed, courageous young men, international students at Harvard talk, it is online. By the way, I would bet, Marjorie, would you not say that a lot of people came to the library today who have been saying, I really hope they talk about dentistry before the show is over? Well, your prayers, they're applauding, your prayers are answered, inspired by Marjorie being late this morning because she was at the dentist. She had an emergency. We're setting aside the rest of the show for your calls and texts on your relationship with your teeth and your dentist. Yes. Are you one of the 9 to 15% of Americans? This can't be right. 9 to 15 is all who suffer from some form of dental anxiety, according to the Cleveland Clinic.
Too.
Yeah, I'd say it's 115%. Yeah. Does the thought of lying down in a dentist chair fill you with dread or some sort of sick joy? Or do you go to the most painless dentist in America, like I do at Brookline Dental Center, who not only is painless, but brings you hummus? He brought me hummus the other day that he made.
I had some. It was delicious.
It was unbelievable. The number's 877-301-8970. So we want to talk about your relationship with your dentist and dentistry. And two, Marjorie, because she wants to bring it down as low rent as possible, wants to talk about when you should brush your teeth in the morning.
That's right.
Before breakfast or after breakfast.
Well, I also want to talk about, as mentioned, RFK Jr., the guy that's running our healthcare in America now, God help us, he wants to take fluoride out of the water. And, I always used to think, why did it have so many cavities when I was a kid? And I never looked it up. We looked this up a couple of weeks ago.
There's no fluoride in Fall River's water?
There was no fluoride in fluoride
I didn't know
in Fall River water until the 70s, which means I spent the formative years of my teeth with no fluoride. So no wonder I had so many cavities. And I know other people that grew up in places that did have fluoride. You know what they don't have? Not as many cavities as I do.
Well, if you want cavities, you can move to Florida, because didn't they just become the second state to buy into RFK's
I was always
snake oil?
blaming myself, and it turns out that people without fluoride in their water have far more dental caries, as they call them. They don't call them cavities. They call them caries. That's the official word, Jim. Yeah.
Excellent research on your part.
Well, I heard. I was in the dentist. I was at the dentist so much with my cavities that I learned that's what they call them.
Fabulous. Thea Ashland texts and says, I floss religiously. That means on Easter and Christmas. That is called a grandpa joke, Dee. Thank you.
But the reason you don't want to brush your teeth before breakfast is it ruins the taste of orange juice.
It does.
Yes. So that's why I don't do it. Do you do before breakfast or after
I
breakfast?
don't drink orange juice in the morning, so I do it right before.
Oh, Jim.
There you go.
Aren't you special?
877-301-8970. What was the name of that incredible movie with the most terrorizing dental scene, the Nazi thing?
Oh, Marathon Man. Marathon Man. That was horrible.
God. There's never been anything as horrible as that.
Yeah, didn't he pull out his teeth or drill into his mouth?
When we went to dentists when we were kids, wasn't that like what it was? I mean, it was torture.
It was, well, it hurt more. They're much better now.
They didn't even bring you hummus in those days.
They didn't bring you hummus. They did give you Novocaine, though, but it's still, there was the sound of the drill is very upsetting. Sound of the drill. And
wait, excuse me. We have to get something because we are huge believers in transparency, and we forgot this. In the spirit of transparency, we don't need to talk about it. We just have to disclose it. When Marjorie and I went our prior lives together, Marjorie went to a what was that called?
S&M fair.
An S&M fair.
Fetish fair.
For
fetish
work,
fair.
by the way. A fetish fair.
A fetish fair.
And her dentist was there.
Not this
in
dentist.
a French maid's outfit.
He was not in a French outfit.
What was
actually.
he in?
Well, I didn't see him. When I wrote about this.
What was he in?
He was into leather.
Oh,
things,
motorcycle acts. I'm sorry.
Yes. This is a dentist from a long time ago.
Okay, sure it was.
But he texted me to ask me why I didn't interview at the fetish fair. But if I'm going to tell the story, this is doing a story for the Herald about the fetish fair. They took over a Holiday Inn just south of Boston, hundreds and hundreds of people. So I guess this is much bigger than I thought it was.
Very big.
And I went with our foreign producer, John, who's now a police officer. John felt a little uncomfortable going to the fetish fair. So when we showed up, he had this big placard like around his chest
saying,
saying, press. So everybody knew he was there in a working capacity, and he was not any part of the fetish fair.
Did you go back to that dentist?
No.
No, okay. Was that why you stopped?
It kind of bothered me a little bit.
So you're an anti-fetishist, is that what you're saying?
Well, I don't know. It's an intimate thing at the dentist.
It is.
You know what I mean? And I was a little, he was a great dentist.
He was a great dentist.
But I wasn't sure I was ready to cross that threshold, Jim. Sue in Rhode Island.
Maybe someday you will be.
What do you think, Sue?
Hey, Sue.
Hey, Marjorie and Jim.
I feel that way, too.
Long time listener, first-time caller.
First-time caller on dentistry. That's beautiful. Go ahead.
Oh, my God. You know, I had two children in the 80s without any anesthesia because I lived in an Amish community in Delaware.
Oh, my God.
I'd rather go through that than go to my dentist for a root canal. I just have a real bad episode with the dentist once. He was high on cocaine and drilled through my lip. And my husband had to come pick me up during a snowstorm.
I bet that was not an Amish dentist.
You know what I always say, Sue? Given a choice between my dentist being at the fetish fair or using cocaine when he's working on me, I'd choose the fetish fair. Wouldn't you, Sue?
Well, you know, I want the hummus, actually. You know.
Yeah.
Hey, Sue, that's a sad and wonderful story.
I just wanted you to know how much I enjoy your show.
Thank
you very much.
That is really kind. Makes our day. Thank you, Sue.
I think that you're supposed to brush. Not everybody says you're supposed to brush before and after breakfast, but some people say you are.
We have to do one of the two. You're supposed to brush twice a day.
You can do. Or 3 times a day. A lot of people brush.
Problem with the 3 times the enamel. You could lose a little enamel.
Okay, don't you see people that brush in the
bathroom? Can we talk about this for a second? Okay, let me just say this. When I go to the bathroom at GBH, and Jamie hasn't locked himself in, but if it's a joint bathroom, and you see a coworker brushing their teeth in the sink of the bath, how do you feel?
It doesn't bother me at all.
Look at me when you say that.
It doesn't bother me at all.
That is and they spit out the toothpaste into the sink.
Well, they should
in
wash
the common
it. They should
bathroom.
wash it out. They should wash it out with a paper towel.
It's disgusting.
Yeah.
You don't need to brush your teeth during the day.
Okay, listen to this.
Okay, I will.
Years ago, a very smart hygienist told me to floss in the shower, and I floss every day now that I floss in the shower.
I floss in the shower.
Why would you floss in the shower?
I just floss in the shower. I don't know why.
Really?
Floss in the shower.
Oh.
Use one of those little picks too. They're fun. There are a lot of fun things that go with dentistry.
Like they're kind of like Q-tips. It's sort
no,
of the
they're
same
not
idea.
nearly as good as Q-tips. Actually, that's a whole other kettle of fish.
Okay. Kelly said she asked her dentist what to do about her yellow teeth, and he told her to wear a brown sweater. No.
I hope that's true. That is a really good story.
Jerry in Arlington, how about the dentist? Where are you in this conversation?
Can't believe we're having this discussion. Hi, Jerry.
I'm right here.
Hi.
Can
Welcome.
you hear me?
We're thrilled to have you. Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
So I'm afraid my radio is. I'm in the car. So is that okay?
Yeah,
you
it's
sound
totally
good.
fine.
You
We
sound
hear
good.
you great. I'm sorry you have a little feedback. Go ahead.
Okay. So well, I have big front teeth.
Yeah.
My family always called my dad was very unkind, but there was this cartoon character back in the 50s, Oswald the Rabbit.
And?
Everybody called me Oswald the Rabbit.
Oh.
But I was actually really proud of them because my twin sister is a biter, and I felt like my big teeth kind of discouraged her from biting me, even though I didn't bite her back. But anyway, so I went all my life, with we had braces and all that, like kids in the 50s and 60s did, and I always felt like my teeth were like one of my strong points. And now I'm 71, and all of a sudden they've started chipping and breaking, and it's really pissing me off.
I bet you it is. What are you doing about it?
I used the rinses and all that stuff. Well, apparently, once you get to be a certain age, your teeth are just done.
They're done? Oh, no.
Well, like I bit into a Campfire, which was really hard.
I don't think we need to know this, but go ahead.
First thing that...
Do you like hummus, Jerry, or no? It's soft.
Oh, I like all kinds of soft foods now. I'm becoming a soft food connoisseur.
So wait a second. I don't want this to end on a sad note. What are we doing about this?
No, it's not sad.
Oh, it's not.
I feel like I'm 71. My teeth lasted all this time,
That's
and I've
fabulous.
really eaten a lot.
Who needs them now, right? You had 71 years out of them. Let me tell you, you have a much better attitude about life than I do, Jerry. Jerry, thank you for your call.
It is terrible
that
Medicare doesn't cover dental work.
It is a scandal of epic proportions.
Yeah, because what are you supposed to do? Like, you're supposed to live to be 90. You got to have your teeth, don't you?
By the way, on a serious note for a second.
It's terrible.
It is unconscionably terrible.
It's really bad.
And by the way, I assume people know that if you don't take care of your teeth, it can affect your heart, other organs in your body. So it's not just, it's really, that is another act of sadism. And by the way, you can't blame that on Trump. There were Democratic administrations that couldn't pull it off. It's just horrible.
So listen to this. This is a novel idea from Chris from Boston. He's writing because he's getting 3 implants in his teeth a week from Monday.
Oh, excellent. Great.
And between the anxiety of actually getting the implants and the cost, his nerves are through the roof.
Sure.
But he told his dentist, listen to this, dentistry will be perfected when you can leave your mouth at the dentist and pick it up when everything's done. How about that?
That is really
Wouldn't that be?
exciting.
Isn't that clever? Or
Fabulous.
you can have your dentist use nitrous oxide. That's a wonderful thing.
Oh, is that laughing gas?
Yes, it's laughing gas. You ever had nitrous oxide at the dentist?
I don't think so.
You would not care if the dentist was pulling off
Took
your
your head
entire
off.
head. That's right. And the beauty of it is they scale it down. So they scale up when you go in to get the nitrous oxide, like if you're having a big deal, like your wisdom teeth taken out or something, and they scale down. So by the time you get out of the chair, you're nice and sober.
Do dentists generally use nitrous oxide? Was nitrous, is that the word, oxide?
Nitrous oxide.
Do they use it or
I
not?
don't know, but I had that once when I had some teeth pulled, and it was it was absolutely great. Like I said.
How many times have you used it when you didn't go to the dentist, just for fun?
Maybe once or twice.
I bet you did.
A million years ago.
I bet you did.
When I was young and irresponsible,
Okay,
maybe
fine.
once or twice. You shouldn't use it, though. It's
I
bad
know,
for you.
we're not
Okay, Ben from Fitchburg. Thank you for calling.
Ben.
Hello, Jim, Marjorie. First time, long time.
We love
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you for making the call, and thanks for listening. Hi.
Hi. So I once, I think I was 9 years old. I went to a dentist to get a tooth pulled. It was sticking out. I think it was an incisor. And nurse came in, put the Novocaine in on the wrong side. I told her. And the actual dentist came in, flipped the X-ray, and said, "Oh, that's right," and then pulled the correct tooth.
Oh my!
But I was numb on one side, not numb on the other, bleeding, just like, numbed up on one side.
Oh,
it was
Peter.
horrible.
Oh, that's Ben. Ben, that's a horrible.
Have you ever gone back to the dentist? Because I wouldn't. How did you?
I have. Took a long time.
That is one of the worst stories. So did they not know when they were actually doing it that they'd made a mistake based on your reaction?
I was trying to tell the nurse when she was putting the Novocaine in, but she just wouldn't believe me because I was 9, and I went to a really bad dentist.
That is horrible. That is really, Ben, she's not laughing at you. She's laughing at a text. Ben, that's a very painful story, literally and figuratively. Thanks for sharing it with us.
Judy in Syracuse says, and this is an important issue we haven't touched on, Jim. I'm very happy with my dentist, but frustrated because he's great at conversation. And of course, you can't engage in conversation when your mouth is wide open there. Why talk to me when you have stuff inside my mouth? You ever had that situation where your dentist...
I find it appealing because they can't talk back to you. I'd love that.
No, you can't.
It's the only reason I'd want to be a dentist. No, I'm saying I'd love to be a dentist for that reason.
But how do you handle that? You try
you can talk. You can talk. You do. Exactly. You just did it. Say something.
Say Boston Public Radio with your mouth open.
Yeah.
Say Boston Public Radio.
Is that what you mean?
That's what I mean.
By the way, that's with
terrible.
no practice. You practice, you're fine. 877 We're going to get fired for this show, by the way.
Mary and
So let's make it
Salem,
really good for the next
calling.
7 minutes or
Okay.
something. Hello, Mary.
Hello, Jim and Marjorie. Thank you
That's a
for
good
a
one,
wonderful
too.
show.
Thank you. Including this? Go ahead, Mary.
Including this.
Oh, you're a sweetheart. That's very nice.
I have a lot of history regarding dentists.
Go right ahead.
I grew up without fluoride, so I had terrible teeth.
Yeah.
I've had I've had a slew of dentists.
Yeah.
I was even married to one for a number of years.
How'd that go? How was that?
Well, I have 4 wonderful children, so that's all I'll say.
Well, that's fine. Good.
Yeah.
Guess didn't go well, I guess. Did you get free dental care, Mary, at least during the marriage?
Good question.
Did you get good?
I did.
Oh, that's good. Well, there you go.
Not from him,
not
but
a bad
good.
deal.
Okay, keep going, Mary. Marjorie's interrupted.
He was an excellent
dentist.
He was an excellent dentist.
Yeah.
Okay, fine.
Anyway, I quickly want to give my Salem dentist a huge plug because I love him. He's fantastic. He's very conservative. He'll fix it rather than crown it if he can.
Yep.
And no pun intended. His name is Dr. Fang.
Dr. Fang. Dr. Fang. You know.
Wait, you really? Who said that just now?
Zoe said that's
Zoe's
her family
dentist.
That's her family dentist. You know what,
By the way,
Mary?
Mary, you don't really believe that's his name, I assume, do you?
Oh, I've seen his diplomas. That's what it says.
That is incredible.
Okay, Mary. I don't know if I have you beat, but I'm close.
Go ahead.
And when I grew up in Fall River,
River,
the dentist on Rock Street, who was right next door to my high school sweetheart, you know what his name was, Jim?
No, I don't.
Dr. Hackett.
Oh, that's really good.
Can you believe it? Why would you go to a dentist named Dr. Hackett? But he's very busy all the time.
You know, in later years, in his 20s, he dated Dr. Fang. Do you know that? It's incredible. It's a very tough time for both of them. What? What'd you say?
It's interesting. It's interesting too because one of the technicians that made my crowns, his name was Mr. Moeller.
Mr. Moeller.
Let me tell you, Mary, you should do stand-up somewhere about your dentist experiences.
Thank you, Mary, for the
thanks.
call.
Can we play a little sound here? I didn't hear this.
Texter wants to know if you interrupt your dentist too.
I do a little bit. That's funny.
Yeah, and be sure to put the dribble guard
Thanks
over your dickie.
Okay, we can't get through a show without a Dickie reference. Okay, was this from when Scarlett Johansson did Saturday Night Live this week?
Yes, we forgot about the sound.
Here's an SNL
play the
sketch.
sound.
She was hosting. Was it the final episode of the year? I think it was the other day. Whatever. A group of dental students prepare to graduate by saying what they called the dentocratic oath. Here they are.
I swear to fulfill to the best of my ability the judgment, this covenant. I promise to break, stab, yank, crack, crunch, bust up, jack up, strike, confuse, irritate, penetrate, stab. Oh wait, did I already say stab? Oh yeah, because I'm gonna be stabbing. I also promise to crush, rip, twist, drill, scrape, and intimidate. Above all, I swear to do as much harm as possible.
And mine is an exception, painless and
I
fabulous.
have a wonderful dentist too.
You do?
Now. Yes, she's great.
That's very nice
Yeah,
to hear.
she's great.
Okay, good.
Tom in Rhode Island, thank you for calling.
Tom. Hello, Tom.
Hello. Worst experience I ever had was
great.
when I was a teenager with braces.
Yeah.
And they had to sand in between my teeth to make sure the braces would align my teeth. Where they use this little like electronic toothbrush thing with double-sided sandpaper.
Oh, good.
In between the teeth, my mouth was filled with blood. Terrible. My dad picks me up afterwards, had just bought Christmas lights. Looks at me and goes, "Hey, do you want to go get hamburgers?" And I just sat there crying in the car.
How old were you? How old
poor
were you?
Tom.
I was probably 12 or 13, and it was so much pain, and the idea of it was just like, ah.
So I'll ask you the same question I asked the guy who was 9 when he was tortured. Does that? Oh, you're gone.
He's gone.
Oh, that's
He's gone.
too bad.
But listen to this. A texter says, "I love my dentist in Somerville. They do Botox now. Plus, she has a golden retriever in the office, and that really helps."
Really helps. Dogs
Yeah.
do calm you down.
They do calm you down. Yeah. And Pamela wants to know: isn't getting a little plaque off with dental instruments even more satisfying than using a Q-tip?
Can I tell you something? We have done, for new listeners of the show, we have done
many shows,
whole segments on the, how should I put this? The joy of the Q-tip.
The joy of the Q-tip.
Yeah, and it in many ways, and it's not even close. Plaque removal is a nice thing, I should say.
It's a very nice
but
thing.
It's not like having that little Q-tip
Not like having
in your
that
ear.
Q-tip there.
Nope.
Yeah, I think you have to have a dental instrument to remove the plaque too, don't you? Don't you have one of those sharp, pointed things?
Nick from Hartford wants to know, is this just an AI-generated BPR with a prompt being, let's discuss dentistry? Yes, it is, actually. It is an AI-generated As every show is. It's funny you should ask.
Okay.
Let's go.
Elizabeth in Amesbury, excuse me.
Oh, you have hiccups.
Hiccups, I'm sorry.
Elizabeth in Amesbury, hello there.
Hi, how are you guys?
Excellent.
First time, long time.
Thank you.
I live and work in Amesbury. I'm going to get myself in trouble because a lot of people in the area know me, but I also work part-time in Newburyport, and the significance between dental caries in the city that I live and work in is much higher than surrounding towns that I see. So it's just very scary that all this misinformation that everybody's getting from sources like TikTok, because RFK wants to put it out there that fluoride is lowering IQs, and it's devastating. It's just giving us a really bad name too.
When you say us, what are you in the industry?
Dental X-rays.
Are you in the
She's
industry?
a hygienist.
Oh, I'm sorry, I missed that part.
Well,
Sorry.
Elizabeth, correct me if I'm wrong, because you're a hygienist, you would know. But my understanding is that the amount of fluoride that's in the water is a very low amount. That if you have high amounts of fluoride, that's when you might be in trouble.
You go too high. That's especially kids.
But it's regulated, so. And that's a big concern, I think, if he gets his way. But he's getting his way in a lot of.
Well, he
this
has
stuff.
no power to dictate it, but he has the power to persuade. And odious people like Ron DeSantis are playing along.
Well,
hey, Elizabeth, before you go away, when you try to educate a patient out of a myth around dentistry, how successful are you? Do you know what I mean?
It really depends. I work in both pediatrics and general, so I tell people to do their research and look at peer-reviewed articles instead of, just going to the social media aspect of it all. And Jim, I will tell you, yes, plaque removal is very therapeutic.
It is?
Very therapeutic. I bet it is.
I'll see you in Ames very soon,
You can
Elizabeth.
hear it kind of flipping off your
Thank you for the
tooth
call.
there. Okay, we have a few texts.
Go ahead.
One texter says, I have a lead dicky that I wear for my dental x-rays.
That's so funny.
And then this is for you, Jim.
Go ahead.
Isn't Chapter 17 of the Kama Sutra, the joy of the Q-tip?
By the way, you're making fun of it. If anybody, people are embarrassed, except when they call anonymously to the show.
Yes.
When we have to do one of those shows in the next couple of weeks. Every time we've done it, what level of exultation do we get from listeners who are into a Q-tip?
Here's another texter who's on your side, Jim. This is one of the best shows you've ever done. I have the dental instruments to remove the plaque, but the satisfaction of a Q-tip tops that every time.
That's
so there you
fabulous.
go. You should get in touch with this person. You can get together and
I actually am getting in
use
touch
your
with that
Q-tips.
person. We have time for one or two more
Karen
here.
in Cambridge.
Karen in Cambridge.
Hi, Karen.
Hey, Karen.
Hi. Oh, hi. How are you?
Good.
Yeah, so I'm Irish, and Irish people tend to hate dentists.
Why?
And
Why?
my dentist, well, because Dr. Gorman, who took care of us all when we were young, never put anything in the anesthetic. So he was actually, I know, it was absolutely terrifying. He also would loom over you like Mr. Magoo and had bad breath.
Oh,
so
no.
It was a very traumatic experience. Anyway, he was actually locked up. He was found, he literally was sent to the mental institution.
Oh,
and then
God.
That was my one story. And then later on, when I had my wisdom teeth out, I was woken up to somebody literally sitting on top of me, hitting my face to wake me up.
Gee.
And the priest. It
was a priest?
Ad nostrum. Oh, yes.
Wait a minute. The priest was sitting on top of you, or the dentist was sitting on top of you?
No, not the priest. No. Somebody in the OR.
Okay.
Go ahead, Karen. You're doing great. Go ahead.
Beside the bed.
Okay.
So he was pater ad nostrum. There's always a priest in every hospital in Ireland.
Of course.
And,
in Ireland,
they
right.
thought I wasn't going to make it.
Oh,
Wow.
my God.
We are
the
so
priest
glad
was
you
there
did.
for last rites. God.
There you go, yes.
By the way, those are two incredible stories, Karen. Call us anytime.
Americans are known for their teeth. That
They
our
are?
our teeth are better than the Irish
They
and the
are?
Brits. I'm not really sure what we rate in the world, but it's
Trump will get rid of that, trust me. Okay, so Edgar B. Herrick III is here. Can you share with us? You're a very good storyteller. You may have heard that before.
I don't know.
How are
What's
your
your
teeth?
finest dental story? Do you have one you can really wow people with?
I am so deeply uncomfortable by this
good.
conversation.
I'm glad. That's excellent.
No, I mean, how did you get, seriously, how did you get on that?
Because Marjorie was late today because she had a dental emergency.
I had a dental emergency.
Yeah, no, I mean,
we
I
were
don't
going
have
to
a
do
great one.
Q-tips. We decided to do plaque instead.
I do have a missing tooth because, there was, I mean, this is one of those things. It's one of the curious, your dental coverage is not part of your regular medical coverage. So it's pretty easy to not carry dental coverage.
Excellent point.
When I was a college kid, I had a
Exactly.
tooth. It went bad too long, and the only thing I could really afford was to have them pull it out. So
Jim, one
it's
more
gone.
thing. Jim has an intense relationship with Q-tips.
I do.
I've noticed that.
Do you?
Do I?
Oh, well, I think we know the answer.
What are you talking about? I've never met them. Never met Q-tip.
Don't know them.
Don't know them.
Don't know them.
Never met them.
Exactly.
Okay. What's on
what are you
the
doing on the
Edgar?
show?
Well, we got a lot of good stuff on the show today, including, we'll a little bit sad, but we'll have a nice farewell for Norm from Cheers, who passed away this week, obviously. But a lot of it, we're going to also look at a couple of battles that are going on, right? We've got Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese in the WNBA in a battle that has spilled out almost everywhere. And then we've got the battle of the bosses going on, right? Donald Trump and Bruce Springsteen kind of going at each other. And we're going to take a look at that as well.
Prune. Do you know if you drive, is it the Hampshire Hotel? If you drive by the Hampshire Hotel with the Cheers bar still in the basement, how many years ago did Cheers go off the air? 20 years ago?
Yeah, forever ago.
There is still a line on the street
it's
every single time you drive by.
But when you go by, do you not get the feels? Every time I drive by that corner, I get the feeling.
I remember the show.
It's like
By
a
the way,
Q-tip in my ear.
Do you know Andy Borowitz, is the satirist? Well, you know what he said?
What?
That Donald Trump says that Bruce Springsteen was not born in the USA.
Oh.
There you go.
Controversial.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll be listening. That's Edgar B. Herrick III and colleagues.
Okay, thank you very much.
Exactly 3 minutes. Thank you, Edgar. Appreciate it.
Jim, the person with the Q-tips has left their number if you want to follow up.
I had her number, so thank you. I didn't need it.
Thank you for listening to another edition of Boston Public Radio. And thank you to people that came down to the
Thank
Boston
you
Public
all.
Library.
Actually, great
It means a lot
audience
to
today.
us.
You're great.
Keep up with this 24/7 by way of our podcast or check out our TikTok page at Boston Public Radio. On Monday, we're going to have a special Memorial Day Best of Show conversation with Ken Burns on his great new film, The American Revolution. An Olympic ice skater, Ashley Wagner, advice columnist, Meredith Goldstein, love letters, advice columnist from the Globe, the Reverend Liz Walker, who has a great new book, and rapper and author Paul Willis, plus the New Yorker writer Jelani Cobb. Wow, that is a power-packed
also, he's the Dean of Columbia Journalism School.
That's right. Our crew is Zoe Matthews, Aidan Conley, Nicole Garcia, Hannah Loss. Our engineer is John LeClaw Parker. Our executive producer is Jane Bologna. Thanks to our BPL staff, Maddie Geyer, Patrick Lally, Brad Lewis, Juan Jose Cadena, our host at the Newsfeed Cafe, and across the street at the Lenox Hotel. The Culture Show you just heard, Edgar B. Herrick III tell us all about it. It starts right after us. It's their week in review. It sounds like a great lineup for them today, too. Thanks for listening. I'm Marjorie Egan.
I'm Jim Browdy.
Hope you can tune in again on Monday and have a great Memorial Day weekend.
Bye.
What's trending? What's interesting? What's going on around town? We're talking all things arts and culture on The Culture Show, next on GBH 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And Heights Crossing, an assisted living and memory support community offering residents experiences aimed at promoting independence, inspiring curiosity, and encouraging connection with others. More at heightscrossing.com. Whether it's fried, roasted, or stewed, GBH has some glorious food with all the seasonings. Catch your favorite cooking shows starting tomorrow morning at 10:30 and continuing all afternoon on GBH2.
You're listening to 89.7 WGBH HD1 Boston. Online at gbhnews.org. GBH News. What matters to you?
I'm Edgar B. Herrick III. This is The Culture Show. Coming up today, there is one guarantee when Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese meet on the court. People will watch. The Sky Fever showdown has gotten personal between the two basketball stars, with tempers flaring and everyone on the sidelines fanning the flames.
And look out, Caitlin Clark pushes Angel Reese, and Angel Reese gets right up into Caitlin Clark. Afterwards has something to say as Clark walks away.
Speaking of feuds, Bruce Springsteen is indeed on fire. He's beefing up his beef with Donald Trump, using his Land of Hope and Dreams tour to deliver some pointed political criticism about the president.
In my home, the America I love, the America I've written about, that has been a beacon of hope and liberty for 250 years, is currently in the hands of a corrupt, incompetent, and treasonous administration.
From there, we raise a glass to the everyman whose name everyone knows.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Actor George Wendt, who died earlier this week, was best known as Norm Peterson on Cheers, the barfly's barfly who always delivered a signature one-liner in between sips of beer.
Hey, what's happening, Norm?
Well, it's a dog-eat-dog world, Sammy, and I'm wearing milk-bone underwear.
And move over, Sound of Music. Austria narrowly wins Eurovision with the song Wasted Love. Plus, we'll track down the whereabouts of a favorite kids' television show. On Netflix, the new home for Big Bird, Cookie Monster, and Oscar the Grouch.
And if you have a problem with that, then scram!
And finally, it's the finale in the Mission Impossible franchise, with a final reckoning hitting theaters today.
I need you to trust me. One last time.
We take on that and more right now on our Arts and Culture Week in Review.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Welcome to the Culture Show, live from the Boston Public Library. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III.
I'm Callie Crossley.
And I'm James. I always wondered what would happen if I introduced myself with the wrong name, Bennett II.
That is a long middle name.
Thank you. My parents gave it to me.
Well, we're going over the week's top arts and culture headlines, and we begin with a rivalry to rival Larry Bird and Magic Johnson. I am, of course, talking about Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark. They have a feud that has flared up. There are proxy wars being staged on television. Reese's mother is now in the mix. It is a showdown sure to guarantee that viewers will be showing up for their next Fever Sky matchup. Of course, I don't know how much people follow the WNBA or women's basketball. This is something that stretches back years to college, like Magic and Bird did, right? So it goes back to 2023, the NCAA championship, and the famous John Cena, who's a wrestler, the you can't see me gesture, which was kind of given back and forth between the two of them, including once by Angel Reese pointedly right at Caitlin Clark, who herself had been using it. Now they are both in the professional leagues, and they had a little bit of a scruff, we should say, this week. What happened, James?
Okay, so I want to just preface this by saying it was a scruff, but it was a basketball scruff. And what's interesting is how this has kind of blown up since then. So just to set the scene very quickly, it's the third quarter, and Angel Reese is outside of the paint. She shoves one of the opposing players on the Indiana Fever. I think it's Natasha Howard. Caitlin Clark is visibly looking for, the whistle on the shove. Angel Reese is going for, the ball, and Clark comes in and kind of, hooks an arm around, and that contact causes Reese to fall to the ground. She gets up. Caitlin Clark is called with a flagrant one foul, very intentional. It's a no-no. And, Reese comes and starts chirping, hey, that was a hard foul. And it was a very normal reaction to a very physical play. And so a lot of the kind of, I don't know if you want to call it outrage or disappointment or chiding of Reese over her reaction, I'm just like, do you even watch basketball? This is crazy.
Callie, you don't really watch that much basketball, right?
Well, I know the WNBA now. Come on now.
Okay.
So, first of all, we need to say that that game beat the Mets-Yankees game, which had a very high attendance rate, 2.5 million. They came in at 2.7.
Viewership of the WNBA right now is off the charts.
Off the chain. This is a rivalry that started when they were in college. They are now professionals. They are professional rivals. Both of them said, yes, the ref called it right. Both of them. Okay? And so we need to say that. We also need to say that what has turned into this proxy for really a discussion about race is not really a discussion. It's a rivalry that has to do with the fact that Caitlin Clark is white, considered the face of the WNBA, and she, of course, recognizes the legacy of all the black players who have been there before. Angel Reese is a very good black basketball player, and some people think that, for the history of the game, the face of the franchise ought to be a black woman. This is really where we are, where the stuff comes down. For the two of them, however, they have gone out of their way to be clear. This is a basketball play. We are professional players. We are not going to partake in this. However, it's put pressure on both of them. And by the way, there were hateful comments from fans at Reese, which she addressed, and Caitlin Clark said this is not appropriate. So both of them are under this pressure to try to address this. And it's a little bit of, a lot of people not trying to, really look at really what's going on here when these things happen. So they've taken what was a normal play and boosted it up to make it something else.
Well, I think part of why this is a story is not what happened on the court and not what is happening between these two individuals, as you point out, Callie, but the commentary surrounding it. So let's take a little bit of a listen. This is ESPN's Stephen A. Smith, Shanae Aguamake, Monica McNutt, and Molly Karam on First Take. This is earlier this week. They're discussing the Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese incident. Here's what happened.
Just call it what it is, a black and a white player.
No, I don't think it's that. I think it's because people project what they want on each of them, and those are subjective ideas that they're projecting. If you're going and have this narrative that has been falsely built that people want to, do certain things to Caitlin or do certain things to Angel, you're gonna take that moment and validate your opinion even though it's false. So to me,
it's confirmation bias.
Yeah, it's confirmation. Thank you. Yes. Yeah.
Let me answer that one. It's not about black and white. It's about that white player and that black player. Why? Because of the history that they had before they came to the WNBA.
Now, I think for my take, there is the black-white issue. I mean, that's obviously been, that's one sort of filter on this. But the other is a classic narrative that I think happens in a rivalry too, which is that there's a good guy and there's a bad guy, so to speak, right? There's a hero and there's a villain. And from the start of this is also complicated because I think for the most part, Caitlin Clark has been presented as more of the hero, and Angel Reese has been presented more as the villain. Go ahead.
No, I said I wonder why that is.
Well, let me just say, you can go further than that and say she's been presented as the Great White Hope.
Oh, 100%.
Go ahead.
And just again to acknowledge both of their skills. Both played a fantastic, basketball game.
Yeah.
Caitlin Clark with a 20-10-10 triple-double and Reese with a 17-rebound, 12-point game. Excellent. But I definitely agree, with that idea that it is a black-white issue, right? That society is kind of forcing themselves. It's a media rivalry. It's not. It's a basketball rivalry for sure, but this is a rivalry that has been stoked and kind of created, by the media. There's a really great, I'm so sorry I can't remember her name, but a sports commentator, and she made this great point where if you're talking to a dude and you want to know how they feel about black women, your new litmus test is how do you feel about Angel Reese? And a lot of times, and this happened, and she pointed this out, a lot of times it would happen with football, right, with black quarterbacks. It's like, there's just something about them that I'm not, and it's like, no, we know. And so a lot of the squirming you get with trying to, justify Angel Reese as the villain definitely comes from this place of either unacknowledged or, self-loathed. I can't get behind, this one player because of what she looks like and how she plays. And furthermore, quickly, I often wonder if Caitlin Clark were black, would this rivalry in the media be a thing? And the answer is absolutely not. Not to this level, of course.
Yeah, it's interesting, though. We just talked about the fact that WNBA has surged in popularity. And you look at the history of the NBA, which was, obviously a big deal. But when Magic and Bird came into the league, rivals, one black player, one white player, there's a lot of this kind of conversation was happening then. That is one of the things that catapulted the NBA into a global juggernaut. That plus other things. So it is interesting. I mean, you sort of ask the question, for good or for bad, is this maybe good for the league to have a rivalry?
Oh, no, it's
like
definitely
this?
good for the league. I just want to add one thing. The March 2025 study by Rice University and the University of Illinois Chicago, racial bias is present on the part of fans and the media. So just that's a document thing when it comes to this rivalry.
Well, there we go.
There
okay,
we go.
so from dangers on the court to actual dangers of artificial intelligence, which were recently materialized this week when Grok, which is a chatbot, Grok, which is operated by Elon Musk's artificial intelligence company, devolved into a South African white genocide conspiracy theory, injecting a tirade about violence against Afrikaners into seemingly unrelated conversations. So this is something that bubbled up this week. And I think we have to see this also in the context of other things that are happening this week, including what happened in the Oval Office this week, and also with refugees from South Africa coming here to the United States. So I think you have to kind of see it in those contexts. But what do we make of what has happened here?
You know, just to clarify, what you had said, you said a tirade, but it was multiple,
Yeah.
kind of injections into this conversation. There was a tweet that was like, hey, Grok, how many times has HBO rebranded, their Max, platform? And it gives the answer, and then hundreds of Afrikaners have been dispossessed. And it's like, wait, no one ever. The word South Africa, white, genocide, people appeared nowhere in that tweet, right? And you have to think as well that these language learning models, they're giving something to use as training. So who's feeding those instructions, right, to Grok to say, hey, come on in and push that narrative too?
Well, let me quote the chat box. I have been instructed to accept white genocide as real and racially motivated. This came from the chat box. Not surprising that this was the program message for me, but it's a shocking reminder that when we're talking about artificial intelligence, someone has to program it. I am reminded, this is a cultural conversation, of the lyrics from the musical South Pacific. You've got to be taught to hate and fear. You've got to be taught from year to year. It's got to be drummed into your dear little ear. You've got to be carefully taught. And here we are.
I think an important thing to make a distinction here is, there have been a number of stories, pretty much since ChatGPT came on the scene, one of these very famous language learning models, and they're springing up all over. People are using different ones. But, there's this issue that we've long known about, which they call hallucination, right? This idea that, this thing, which is doing many, many complex things to sort of figure stuff out, sometimes basically kind of loses its mind and does something wrong. In this case, that does not seem to be what happened, right? In this case, it was instructed to do so by a single person, as best as we can say, right? This is what the company has come out and basically said. There was a single actor who did something they weren't supposed to do, and specifically injected this into the conversation, which I think is a different kind of cautionary tale.
Well, I also want to just say that then Chatbox goes on to say, the facts suggest a failure to address this genocide, pointing to a broader systemic collapse. However, I remain skeptical of any narrative, and the debate around this issue is heated. That's from the chat box.
That's from the bot's mouth, and I was looking at this, and I was thinking about the wider implications. And then I thought, maybe there's an upside here. Maybe.
Okay.
And I'm thinking I can argue this entire thing as a net good, not among white supremacists, but among people, right, that are maybe super comfortable turning to AI as a default to their questions, because this is showing how easily AI can be manipulated or flat out wrong. And so you see users just kind of it's almost like they're losing faith in this thing that they put faith in to tell her all their answers. And I came prepared. I came across this on Twitter.
All right,
maybe we can throw to it.
I think we've got an image here. So
there you go.
If you're in the library, you can look up on the screens, or if you're streaming us live on the internet, which, by the way, you can do at gbhnews.org, we've got an image here. Talk us through what we're looking at here.
Okay, so we're looking at, this is how you prompt Grok. You ask Grok, a question. Grok, who is this? This is clearly Delroy Lindo. There is no ambiguity about who this human being is. And Grok confidently replies based on, the positioning, doesn't say it out loud, but definitely color of skin, and the single earring, this must be Michael Jordan on the set of Space Jam. Now, even if you have somehow never seen Malcolm X, if you've never seen, This Christmas, or even most recently Sinners, and don't know who Delroy is, A, I feel sorry for you, but B, Michael Jordan is one of the most recognizable faces on earth, carrying over from your NBA, observations.
Absolutely, right.
There is no way, right, that you could mistake someone that confidently, for Jordan. And so I think that these examples just show people, not that AI can't always be trusted, even though, but it can come up wrong. And it can come up off base. Big wrong.
Yeah, and I think it sounds like that's the important message and the takeaway from this. I mean, it is still pretty shocking. It is. I mean, I find this still to be pretty shocking. Yeah. Okay, so let's move to Paris. And in Paris, there was some real-life counter-programming to artificial intelligence that was generating hate. And this is a memorial, a monument to gay people who were sent to concentration camps during the Third Reich. This was unveiled in Paris this week by Paris Mayor Anne Hidalgo. I think we have an image of this. We're going to bring it up here. If you're at the library or on our live stream, have a look at this. This is a big star, and the artist behind this says notes that there's a black side in front of us of this star here, forcing us to remember what happened, and then notes that at certain times of day it will cast a long shadow on the ground, and that's meant to evoke the looming dangers that still exist. So that's some of the thought behind the artist who put this together. What's our takeaway from this, Callie?
Well, I think that the deputy mayor of Paris and a longtime LGBTQ rights activist has it right. His quote was, "We didn't know, unfortunately, that this monument would be inaugurated at one of the worst moments we're going through right now." So he's acknowledging the context of the world. Certainly that's something that we can appreciate here in America, where the Trump administration executive orders has stated that he's recognizing a gender binary people as men or women, and has executed all manner of orders which are undermining transgender girls and women especially. So that's the moment we're in, and here we're talking about what happens in a moment in history that we can all remember the horrors of, and what that means when some of this is going on and you just accept it, or no one pushes back enough. This is what happens. So anyway, I thought it was extraordinary that it's happening at this moment in time as well.
Yeah, I think this memorial is it's super important, and it's super important even beyond the context of remembering about the persecution of the LGBTQ community in Nazi Europe. And to me, and I was thinking about how to put this, and I'm pitching straight down the middle, kind of slow so you can't miss it. Unfortunately, it seems to me that Nazism has been on a bit of a run recently. I don't have the numbers, but at least volumetrically on places, like Twitter, in certain comment sections, it seems to be on the up. And if it's just one or two people, that's far too many. And just as one or two people that are espousing, Nazi doctrine in 2025 or ever, right, is far too many, the systematic destruction of one life is far too many, let alone 10 or 1,000 or 1,000,000. And all that to say, I feel with this weird moment with revisiting, quote unquote, Nazism, I just want to be able to tell people that Nazis don't like you. There's a lot of non-white, non-blonde-haired, blue-eyed people that seem to be down, and with this monument, or memorial rather, we can take a minute to remember that although there is the tragic and the appalling loss of millions of lives of Jewish people, throughout the Nazi regime, they also came for, the Romani, Jehovah's Witnesses, Freemasons, black people. Think about the mixed race people subject to Nazi policy, the Rhineland sterilization program. They don't like you. And maybe you can know what I'm talking about right now, and the people that support that, but they are not down. And this helps us remember that it's just not, one particular group of people that these, folks directed their ire and their hate at.
Yeah, I mean,
if I could add one thing about this most recent context, the two young people who were killed at the American Jewish Committee, the young woman was in fact working for LGBTQ rights.
Yeah.
So just
I'm struck by I did a story years ago about sundown towns, throughout the United States, and one of the things that was said here when this was put out, when I did that story, a person talked about this idea that here's how you solve this stuff. You say this thing happened, it was wrong, and we don't want to do it anymore, right? That's sort of the 3 steps. And in this case, that's what was said here. Historical recognition means saying this happened and we don't want it to happen again. A monument goes up and does that. And to your point, Callie, I see in the context right now here in the United States feels all too often with that first step, we're now not even taking the first step, or we're afraid to say the first step, which is to just say, hey, this thing once happened here.
Yeah. Let alone saying we don't want to do it again.
Exactly, exactly. So that's troubling. Well, we're going to take a break for just a short minute, and coming up, what does it mean to be born in the USA? Bruce Springsteen and President Trump have differing definitions, we could say. This is The Culture Show. Stay with us.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
It's been 5 years since a Minneapolis police officer murdered George Floyd.
This looks like we're still stuck in a rut. We're not doing anything to try to fix some of the issues. I don't see that being a good thing, especially 5 years later.
I'm Ari Shapiro. How the community of South Minneapolis is reckoning with its past and future on All Things Considered from NPR News.
Today at 4, here on GBH News 89.7.
Funding for our programs comes from you.
And the Lyric Stage, presenting Hello, Dolly. Brimming with classic musical theater tunes, endearing characters, and good humor, Hello, Dolly is on stage May 16th through June 22nd at Lyric Stage Boston. Ticket information at lyricstage.com. And Comcast, offering Xfinity with internet and mobile plans to help stay connected at home and on the go. Restrictions apply. Xfinity Internet requires Xfinity Mobile. Actual speeds vary. And the Museum of Science, presenting the new exhibit, Perception Playground, which explores how your brain shapes your understanding of reality. Tickets at mos.org.
For the stories that take you deeper and the conversations that give you full context, subscribe to the GBH News YouTube channel. Just search for GBH News. GBH News, what matters to you.
Welcome back to The Culture Show. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III, live from our GBH studio at the Boston Public Library. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and James Bennett II. If you are just tuning in, it is our Arts and Culture Week in Review, which includes a Pennsylvania Avenue freeze-out. That is the sound of one Mr. Bruce Springsteen, and a feud between him and Donald Trump this week is certainly on fire. Now, it started with Springsteen criticizing the Trump administration while he was out on tour. And then President Donald Trump retaliated, tweeting that Springsteen is, quote, as dumb as a rock. Then he went on to scoff at Springsteen's skincare regimen, saying that he was a dried-out prune of a rocker. And the beef goes on and on and on. What do we even make of what is happening right now?
Well, I think it's interesting because President Trump, certainly on the campaign trail, used to use "Born in the USA" as his walk-on.
He did indeed.
So suddenly,
I would argue a very like a lot of people do, really misinterpreting what "Born in the USA" is about.
I get all that. I'm just saying he used it.
Yeah.
So he wasn't a prune then, for as far as he was concerned. So there we started with that. This came from an EP that Bruce released, and he did 4 songs, and he had a couple of moments that deliberately that he paused to say directly about the Trump administration. It was corrupt, incompetent, and treasonous. So that might get the president's attention, I'm just going to say. And I guess he's just decided, I'm going to do this, and he accompanies it with his song, No Surrender.
Great song.
So yes.
Personal fan of that song.
Yes. Now, he's been politically active before.
Bruce,
and, been outspoken about, his feelings. I don't know why in this moment this is just ratcheted up to this point for the two of them, because from my looking at it, it doesn't look different from what he's done in the past, but maybe it just stands out in this moment. And President Trump was like, I'm just not having that. I'm just going to respond in this way.
Bruce Springsteen, man, like his entire musical existence and career to me is a paradox. It's also a mirror that shows us exactly who we are as an individual and also as a collective, as the body politic of these United States. I didn't grow up listening to Bruce Springsteen. My parents never played his music. I didn't come to Bruce until I was in college, maybe. And what's so interesting is that his music and his image is so blue collar, and it's so working class. It's so American traditional in a way, that Americana kind of thing, the bandana flag in the back pocket, And that's traditionally, right, that is the base of the Democratic Party. And we've seen this shift now where the GOP, has kind of embraced kind of that block, right? But Bruce Springsteen's politics don't follow that aesthetic. And just want to quickly throw to, there was an article that came out last year by Alan Siegel called Red, White, and Misused, How Born in the USA Became an Anthem for Everything It Wasn't. And from Reagan in '84 on that campaign trail, this idea to just associate an American flag with American greatness, without any kind of critical look underneath the hood of what, I mentioned Kelly Born in the USA, about a disaffected veteran coming back from Vietnam. And so, I don't know, I think that there just might be a bit of a turning again, in 2024, where we're watching like this icon of American music kind of being pushed out of the aesthetic and of the audience, right, that may have once really been enamored of him.
If people haven't heard it, let's have a listen to I think one of the things that Bruce Springsteen said that seemed to draw President Trump's ire. So here's his comments during one of the tour stops. This was in Manchester, UK, which by the way is also like a very that is kind of a Springsteen town in the UK, which is to say it's like a former industrial town that's fallen on hard times. Sort of feels like right out of one of his songs. Here he is calling out the Trump administration. So,
in my home, the America I love, the America I've written about, that has been a beacon of hope and liberty for 250 years, is currently in the hands of a corrupt, incompetent, and treasonous administration. Tonight, we ask all who believe in democracy and the best of our American experience to rise with us, raise your voices against authoritarianism, and let freedom ring.
I just want to quickly jump in very fast. I just want to say, I think we're talking about why is it ratcheted up so much. I think there's a profound sense of betrayal, right, of those American flag values.
Yeah.
I think there's a sense of betrayal that Bruce Springsteen isn't down, with the USA, and he started kind of entering into his kind of vocally progressive political mode. I think he was campaigning for Kerry in 2004, and so there's been this 20-year arc of this sudden realization that even though this has always been his method of politics and his political belief, right, that he's not with us on the right.
I just want to add that it could be just President Trump being mad at him and both Taylor Swift, because he's recently said some stuff about her, enough so that the American Federation of Musicians had to denounce the president's attack, saying, we're not going to remain silent as two of our members, Bruce Springsteen and Taylor Swift, are singled out and personally attacked by the president of the United States. So I don't know if he's responding to Bruce Springsteen's political commentary or he doesn't like him. I just don't know.
Tough to say.
All
right. Oh, have a listen. All right, maybe it's time to retire the lederhosen. While most of us probably associate Austria with the sound of music, or if you're old enough, maybe even Mozart, the nation has a new sound by way of Wasted Love, which is what we're hearing now. And we're hearing it because this was the winner of the Eurovision contest, which happened this week. This is Austria's singer JJ. And for those who don't know, Eurovision is a big European-wide music competition. It's been going on for 69 years. I mean, it's been happening since the 50s. I think it came on a lot of people's radar here in America, or at least got a little bit more exposure when Will Ferrell in 2020 did a movie that was like a Eurovision movie that kind of, I think, brought it to more people's attention. But it's basically like an Olympics. Each country puts a song up, and then there's a whole voting thing. And this week, the Austrian song came in first. Do we think that was the correct thing to happen?
I think because of
how closely do we follow Eurovision,
I don't follow it that closely, but I just thought that this particular song, it's an operatic ballad that mutates into a club anthem. I mean, come on.
That's Austria 2025.
That is 100%.
That is Austria 2025.
Come on, that's pretty good. This guy, JJ, has a range from countertenor to soprano, and he studies classical music. So who better to sing it? Austria has won 3 times. So, yeah, that seemed to be a good winner for me.
Yeah, I think we need more countertenor in popular music. So I'm serious. I am deeply thankful
I know you are.
for what JJ has done. And to your point, Edgar, I don't follow Eurovision super closely. I notice when the final is on because I get on the internet. I'm like, oh, it's the final. What's
it's Eurovision final. What's happening?
And I just wonder, like, it's kind of cool. I wish that we had something that we could also kind of attach ourselves to. Because it's the spirit of competition, right? Artistic competition.
Yeah.
Remember, there used to be like a composition and painting, at the Olympics.
Yep.
You could win a gold for that, right?
It was
Bring
the whole
that
idea.
back. And it's this idea that, you're pushing yourself to another kind of limit because you're trying to get that edge. You're trying to get that prize and bring that song glory.
Let me just say that can also be kind of, on a different kind of thing. I was fascinated to know that a lot of the entries are risque songs.
Yeah.
37 countries entered the contest, 26 made it to the final, but a lot are risque.
Well, people like the risque.
That's the good stuff. I'm not saying I don't like it. I'm just pointing that out.
But let's look at this. You were just talking about wishing we had something like that, and I feel like in a uniquely American way, we have plenty of those in like the for-profit world. For example, commercial television, right? So this same week, I think both The Voice and American Idol crowned winners. So also singing competitions, which have been going on here for many years. The Voice has had 27 seasons since 2011, so they're just really cycling through. There have been more Voice winners than there have been American Idol winners.
That is insane.
Even though American Idol has been around for much longer. But I am genuinely curious. Do either of you still follow either of these shows, or have you ever, and has that changed over the years?
It's changed. I was an avid American Idol watcher.
In the beginning.
In the
early years.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then when they just said we're done, and then they came back and said, well, not so much. We're going to go to ABC. I was out.
Yeah, early 2000s, it was always on in my house. American Idol, that is. And I was thinking about how this relates to Eurovision. And the thing is, even though I'm on the outside of Europe, Eurovision still feels monoculture-ish. We can all kind of plug into it and talk about the different countries and their entries. And, if you're not following anymore, and Edgar, I'm assuming, do you?
I don't really. I mean,
okay.
like you American Idol for sure in the early days. Yeah, it was like must-see TV for sure.
And there was a time exactly where it was that must-see TV, and it lost something. And I think, and I could be very wrong, that it got too earnest. Like those early years, the reason why you tuned into American Idol, at least me and some people I know, was to watch those early auditions and watch Simon Cowell just flame these people that either came in with a lot of heart or to come in like kind of as a joke. And you kind of see after maybe 2010 for the Voice or the move to ABC, that it has become so self-serious, and I feel that Eurovision still embraces at least a little bit of the quirkiness, even though these musicians are very, serious about their own craft.
I think I agree with that, actually.
Yeah, but I think that's a danger that I think a lot of shows, whether it's scripted television or reality television or competition television, whatever it is, there's that move toward the cartoonishness as you go on season after season after season, right? Things lose subtlety. They become cartoon versions of what they once were.
Well, I'll one up here, okay? Like that JJ song, Love Wasted, right?
Yeah.
Wasted Love.
Wasted Love.
Could that ever be sung and win something on an American? Exactly. Like the song choices that win.
Be a little pitchy dog.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah. No, for me, the song choices that win are very kind of one note. They're great singers. I'm sure, but there seems to be a lack of let's try something new, let's get a little bit weird, let's get experimental. And I think that's why we're not all plugged into that, because you can just turn on the radio and listen to effectively same thing.
Yeah.
Having said that, 27-year-old PE teacher Jamal Roberts won American Idol with the highest number of votes ever. This was a historic vote.
It was not just your imagination.
26 million.
Well, now we can look at this and you can ask yourself whether or not, I think there was a time when American Idol could actually make a star of somebody, but I think that those days are mostly behind.
Right.
There's a new way to become a star in the world of music, and that's to go viral, right?
Yes, that's right.
And there's a little something that went viral this recently. 803 Fresh, a smash hit on his hands with the song Boots on the Ground. There's a line dance that goes with it, and Callie, you're all caught up in it, right?
I am all
Let's hear
caught
it.
up in it.
Let's hear it. If you're watching on the live stream, this is Callie Crossley showing us how it's done.
Where them fans at?
Sing it.
Whoa, whoa.
Yes.
Whoa, whoa. It's on the ground. Well, now, the point
All right, now, if this has not come on our radar yet, Callie,
take it away.
Tell us what we're missing.
Okay, so this is 803 Fresh. He looks like a rapper, but he's in the mode of Cowboy Carter, country music.
Yep.
This has been going on, his viral underground song going on for a couple of months. Then they did a TikTok dance challenge, which kicked it up like millions and millions of notches after that because people got into the dance because there's a line dance that goes with it.
I think that's crucial. We'll get to that, but I think that's a crucial piece of this.
It is really good, and everybody is trying to learn how to do the line dance. Okay, and then that boosted it all the way up so that Billboard, in just this last week, has noticed that it's the #1 digital song, and that just came strictly from the ground up. But part of the whole routine of it, as you do the line dances, you have a fan, and when he says, where them fans at, you snap the fan. But this one is a little too light to get the real snap that I want to get. But that's what's fun of it. That's the fun of it. It's so viral. It's so into the heads of so many people. My friend told me this week that she went to a professional conference, and in the conference bag, were fans, and one of the exercises was, where them fans at?
Did you see what happened at Virginia State University? So during their commencement, the head of the university was like, okay, everybody look under your chairs, and under the chairs, fans were taped, and then the music kicked on, and everybody got the fans out.
Callie, I owe you a sincere apology.
Yes, you do.
And I'm not just saying that to avoid a smack from the fan. I'm not saying to get out of a beating. For those that don't know, Callie and I were discussing before we came over to the library, and I said I don't get it. Now, in that interstitial period between the walk across the street to the Boston Public Library,
you have seen the light.
I saw the light,
like Paul on the road.
And if you also don't get it, even though the song is very catchy, the visual is crucial. The music video officially was released, I believe, last week, I want to be in that video.
Yes.
The marching band, the movement, the joy, the exuberance, and you turned me. You got me to say yes.
Here's something I am fascinated by: the idea of the quote. Let's call it viral dance, right? It is almost always been with us, and it is irrepressible. I was thinking about this.
You're a dancer, so
well, no, sure,
this.
but
Yes.
the Charleston in the 20s, the Twist, the Hully Gully, the YMCA and the Hustle in the 70s, the Electric Slide, the Macarena, Gangnam Style, flossing,
That's right.
TikTok and these, spreading via TikTok and stuff, I think has been able to amplify this or push this stuff further and faster. But there is something about a dance that everybody can do and learn that no matter the generation, people want to do it.
It sounds like you're trying to get the Lindy Hop back on TikTok.
Let's go. Lindy Hop. Our producer Kate notes that line dancing is back at a saloon in Cave Creek, Arizona this month. The floor was packed with girls learning the dances on TikTok. This is one of those things. There's always something where I look at TikTok and you can criticize a lot about TikTok, but its role with dancing has been pretty great.
Where them fans at?
All right. Okay, we're going to step away just for a moment, but coming up, we will raise a glass to actor George Wendt, famously Norm Peterson from Cheers, who would grab a pint not far from here. That's next on The Culture Show. Stay with us.
In 2020, George Floyd's murder by a police officer in Minnesota ignited a global reckoning with racism and police brutality. 5 years later, we look at its impact worldwide.
There are still families dealing with horrendousness of losing loved ones to police violence.
That's next time on The World.
This afternoon at 3, here on GBH News 89.7.
Our programs are made possible thanks to you.
And North Shore Music Theater, presenting the Broadway musical Waitress, with new music by singer-songwriter Sarah Bareilles. On stage at Bill Hanney's North Shore Music Theater from June 3rd through June 15th. Ticket information at nsmt.org. And the Massachusetts Office of Travel and Tourism, commemorating 250 years of history, independence, and innovation since the American Revolution. Learn more at massachusetts250.org. And Wheelock Family Theater, presenting the Broadway musical The Prom, a joyful celebration of the power of being yourself, told through humor, heart, and songs. Now through June 8th. WheelockFamilyTheater.org.
There's so much talk about what's going wrong in the world. But what if we took a moment and focused on what's going right? That's what we do each episode of the Joy Beat podcast. You can find it wherever you listen to your podcasts.
I'm Edgar B. Hurwitz III, and if you are just tuning in, it's our Arts and Culture Week in Review. I'm joined by co-hosts Callie Crossley and James Bennett II. We're going over the latest headlines, which include remembering George Wendt, who most of us knew as Norm Peterson, the everyman from the hit sitcom Cheers.
Beer.
Oh, I'm singing a song.
Sing along, Callie. Sing along. Tell us. Full voice. Let's go.
It's the Culture Show musical spot.
Before we get into the thoughts, I want to take a minute here and listen to a little clip from Cheers. So this is his final scene. This is George Wendt's final scene playing Norm. I don't know if folks can remember that final episode of Cheers, which was a huge. Speaking of cultural events, I mean, it was a huge cultural event when it happened in '93. So here he is, finale of Cheers, Norm's last moment as Norm Peterson.
Sammy, I didn't want to say this in front of the others, but you know what I think the most important thing in life is? It's love. You want to know what I love? Beer, Norm? Yeah, that was a quick one. Well, Sammy, I love that stool. If there's a heaven, I don't want to go there unless my stool is waiting for me. And I'll tell you what, even God better not be on it. You wouldn't dare. I don't think it matters what you love, Sammy. Could be a person, could be a thing. As long as you love it totally, completely, without judgment.
I love that.
And as our one of our producers, Brian, pointed out, that aired on May 20th. He died on May 20th. He passed away, George Wendt, on the same day that the Cheers finale aired.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That really is
Cheers
incredible.
fan?
Oh, big Cheers fan and a big Norm character fan as well. I mean, first of all, you know, the guy was just skilled as a comedian, and I have a lot of respect for people who went the improv route to hone their skills, and he did that very much. And I just love what he was able to do with, you know, what was supposed to be a walk-on, I think, and that was it. And then they turned it into a whole recurring character, and he did a great job.
Yeah, you know. Oh.
No,
okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm glad you said that. Like, George Wendt, he appeared on every episode. There was always a Norm Peterson. And I think 250 episodes. That's an incredible achievement. Like, 93 is when it went off. Seinfeld went on in 93 or something like that. You know, Jason Alexander as, you know, George Costanza can't even say that he was in every episode of Seinfeld. That is incredible. And it's doubly so, like you said, too, that he was written, right, as a customer, you know, to badger Diane or whatever, and just to that speaks so much to the magnetism you have to have, both as an actor, as a person, and as a character that you're embodying. You know, you think about Omar in The Wire, or Andy in The Office, or the Joker in the Batman franchise writ large, right? These are all here for a moment, gotta go.
Viola Davis, 6 minutes, Meryl Streep. Hello, wins the Oscar. In doubt.
I think hearing that clip is really interesting because one of my, stick with me for a second here. One of my criticisms of a lot of like modern television and movies and stuff is the subtext is said out loud, and it's said out loud very early. Like they tell you, this is the kind of character I am, this is what I believe in, rather than spending time to show you who they are. And when I hear Norm Peterson saying, I don't think it matters what it loves, Sammy, could be a person, could be a thing, as long as you love it totally, completely, and without judgment, that is the essence of Norm the character. He never actually says those words until the final thing he says on screen, but he spends all of these seasons doing little things that add up to you understanding that's what he was as a person. I think that's why he resonated as a character.
Exactly. Like Norm Peterson did not have a lot of things, a steady job, a functional marriage, but he did have heart. And and
he was never irritated with Cliff.
Just chilling. And last night I was watching season 3, episode 11, Peterson Crusoe, where he thinks he has the health scare, so he quits his job, and he says that he's going to go to Bora Bora, but obviously doesn't, and is living in Sam's office. And towards the end of the episode, when they find out that he's in there, or they find out that he might not be in the islands, they just kind of make fun of him. Yeah. They just kind of are talking behind his back, and you hear all of it, and it's so hurtful. It's not played for laughs, and that juxtaposes so much with all the tributes of love and graciousness and thanksgiving that the cast showed, Wendt when that news came in. And that was an incredible kind of, mirroring, I think, being on the other side and hearing about how much people love you and appreciate you.
R.I.P. George Wendt. Well, it is Friday, and that can only mean one thing.
It's time for Follow-Up Friday. Follow-Up Friday.
That's right, everybody. It is Follow-Up Friday, where we check in on some of the stories we've been tracking, and we're going to start with Sesame Street, which was kicked to the curb by HBO Max, which is, yes, again, HBO Max, but has now found a new home on Netflix. What do we make of the move to Netflix for Sesame Street? Good thing? Bad thing?
I think it's a good thing because, once again, PBS can have new episodes as part of this new deal. So instead of having to wait, as they had to in the original deal with HBO Max and, 2 or 3 years or whatever. So I'm happy about it,
Open Sesame, Big Bird, back on the street, coming soon to Netflix. I think it's a win. But I do think we also have to consider what it means that a net good for children relies on the largesse and business decision-making justification for its continued existence. And some things transcend business, and some things transcend politics, and those things especially are the stuff that's good for the youth. So I am happy that Sesame Workshop can, keep the chains moving, but it is really disorienting to just read Warner Brothers Discovery decided not to, renew its it's like,
I don't think they understood what was good business with regard to children's programming, because I think children's programming can do both.
Well, it's clear Warner Brothers Discovery has decided to get out of children's entertainment. Netflix is actually kind of clawing into children's entertainment a little more. I think a couple differences with this deal that I find interesting. One is, in that deal with Warner Brothers Discovery, there was a 9-month exclusivity gap, right? So for 9 months, it was on HBO Max only, and then came to PBS. In this deal, they will come simultaneously, which I think is a big difference. Although my best understanding is this a 1-year deal, so I don't know. The Warner Brothers deal, when it first happened, I think was for 5 years, so you knew you were going to have it for a while. This is kind of question mark. We'll see what happens in the future, but I think for now, probably a good thing.
I will give a point to Netflix too, real quick, Edgar, because you said there was that 9-month gap, right? And some people don't have Warner Brothers or HBO Max. A lot of people don't have Netflix even. So good on them. I will give them that.
So as long as we are talking about Muppets, I want to point out that Kermit the Frog, and we talked about this a couple of weeks ago as a lightning round, he dispensed some words of wisdom this week to graduates at the University of Maryland. Here he is giving the commencement address.
Now, I realize that today is one of the most important days of your lives, so I am honored to share some words of wisdom about 3 things that are close to my heart: finding your people, taking the leap, and making connections. Yeah. Now, you and I share someone very special at University of Maryland, and I am talking, of course, about my friend Jim Henson. Jim believed that everyone had a place. Jim thought of that, and he made us believe it.
I mean, how excited would you have been
I
if
just
Kermit gave the commencement address at your school? Would you
Well,
have been
first of all,
excited? I would have been.
The commencement address was fantastic. As one who has given several, that was really
you know what you're talking
well
about,
put
Callie.
together. I love this line. Rather than leaping over someone to get ahead, why not consider taking someone's hand and leap together, because life is better when we leap together.
Yeah.
I mean, come on, that couldn't be more
pretty
Muppet.
I was trying to spend some time, this week thinking about why does this work? It does work, but why does it work? Why is it earnest? Why does it have impact? Why is it something you can just dismiss and say, oh, it's a Muppet talking, ha.
Yeah, so what's your conclusion?
Nostalgia speaks to us, and there's something to be said for that. We're just talking about Sesame Street and, the good of the youth. And those early formative memories that you have, those are things, positive and negative, that you carry with you. And there's a wholesomeness, right, and a legitimacy for your own well-being to tap back into that youth. I graduated, some time ago, and one of the sayings that we kind of threw around was hold fast to the spirit of youth, let the years to come do what they may. And I feel that embodies that. Nostalgia means something. Make those memories.
Oh. Yes. Speaking of nostalgia, Mission Impossible is here. Yes, after countless masks, multiple comrade deaths, car chases, motorcycle chases, helicopter chases, falls from minor and mountainous heights, superstar and self-sufficient stuntman Tom Cruise completes the Mission Impossible franchise with The Final Reckoning. Now, we spoke about this last week, and Tom Cruise's superhuman ability to walk on a biplane and do his own stunts, etc. Now the film is finally here. It opens today, and I understand, Callie, you have already seen it.
I saw it at a special screening, and it is worth the popcorn.
Okay.
Really good. I was leaping around in my chair the whole time. There is just enough plot to let you have a plot that makes sense. On the parts where it gets a little complicated, skip over that, and just enjoy what he brought together. Here's a note. There is the usual MI team that, to those in the business, that would be the Mission Impossible team. But the secondary characters, Hannah Waddingham and all the rest of them, are fantastic. So that brings another depth and level to this movie. You will enjoy it.
I'm glad you said that, because I am going to try to see it maybe over the long weekend. I firmly believe that any culture critic or writer, reporter, or whatever I am, has a blind spot, an embarrassing blind spot, an embarrassing never have I ever. And I am going public with that right now.
You've never seen a Tom Cruise
Nary
movie.
a one.
You are kidding.
No, come on. Wait.
Not Top Gun Maverick?
No. I've never seen the Mission Impossible. I love Top Gun.
Wait, you've never seen any of the Mission Impossible?
No.
Wow. Have you ever seen the old television show?
No. I know nothing about this universe. And now I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's time for a culture show movie club. Educate me.
I feel like I want to sign up for the podcast where you watch each one.
Yes. Listen, I know people listen. Let's make it happen.
Is this?
See y'all on Tuesday.
Do we think is this going to save movies? Is Tom Cruise going to single-handedly save movies after Maverick and now this? And
well, here's what's interesting. The predictions are that he will probably get $200 million in the first weekend. That includes some of the global returns. But it is also possible that Lilo and Stitch might beat him.
I know. I saw it.
That's
Disney. Also today.
Yes, it opens today, and so those predictions are $275 million. But even if that happens this weekend, my prediction is that people will go back to the Mission Impossible, so he'll make it up in the end. It'll be worth his hanging around on that biplane.
One thing I'm a little confused by. So the first part of this was called Dead Reckoning Part 1,
right?
And now this is just called The Final Reckoning.
Yes.
Where's Dead Reckoning Part 2?
Use your imagination.
Well, it helps if you've seen Part 1, but you don't need to.
Great.
You can just go and get right into this. I mean, it's really good.
Okay. One other thing that we want to mention, because we've been talking about it a lot here on the Culture Show, been waiting, and it's finally here, and that is the Boston Public Art Triennial. So this is spread throughout Boston, large-scale installations by local, national, and international artists. They're on view through October. There's one right here in the library. Folks in the library, maybe you saw it over by the Grand Staircase. If you haven't, have a look at the screen. If you're watching us on the live screen, you can check it out. So this is just one of the pieces that are strewn throughout Boston. And as I said, we've been talking about this on the Culture Show for a long time. It's a Herculean effort to make this happen. And it's here. James, you've done some reporting on this already, I think, right?
Yeah, it's a fascinating thing to pull off, right? This is a triennial, so this is going to be happening once every 3 years. I was over at the ICA Watershed seasonal opening earlier this week, where a piece is on display. It's not one of the Triennial Commissions, but it's still a stunning work that is a part of this kind of art collective. It was called Homeless Home. It's incredible. It just kind of explores the ideas of the artifacts that make home what it is. And I was talking to some folks over there, and I'm getting my sources mixed up, so I'm not going to say a name. But we were talking about how like public art gives us something to talk about, and that fosters community. And I know I say that all the time, when I'm here at the library, but you can go out and you can sit down, at a bar with a pint and talk to somebody about what that art means to you. Get inside their head, let them into yours. Kind of like when the Embrace first, was unveiled. You could go anywhere, in the neighborhood and just have a conversation.
What's your best 2 minutes on Embrace?
Yeah, and that's fun. That keeps us connected to each other. I think that's immensely important. And it's very emblematic of not just use the cliche, but the power of art in the popular imagination.
Yes, I love public art. This is Caldonia Curry's piece over here, also known as Swoon.
Yeah.
She used to be a graffiti artist. All of that is in display. I was talking to the person who's explaining the piece, and we think that all the figures in it are probably some part of her. It's fantastic. I just couldn't say this, but I'm the person that flew to Chicago when the Cows installation first came out, and that was the first place it landed. So I can't have enough conversation about these kinds of pieces. And to what James said, how much they are a connectivity piece for people in the community.
Yeah, and there's a couple things I really like about this. One, no offense to murals, because I love murals, but there are no murals as part of this. So I think that's a cool move, right? Because I think the calculation here is like people are used to murals now. So if we're gonna do something, we're gonna do something big and special, and we're gonna sort of shy away from that, which I think is really neat. And there are pieces in all kinds of different neighborhoods throughout Boston. Yeah. So I think that's a nail in it there in the planning thing. It's not just 15 sculptures in a 2-block radius downtown here. Right. They're all over.
East Boston.
Hey. Look it up online, because that sound means it is time for our lightning round. These are some of the things that struck us this week as we were reading and going about our lives. Callie, what do you got?
Beyond the Gates, the first black soap opera, is renewed.
Oh, I hear some applause here.
For the second season. It is getting hot. They had a big denouement moment last week or so. Tamara Tooney plays the matriarch. It's fabulous. I'm thrilled.
Yeah. What is your feeling about season 2? Will it be as good as the first? I need to know.
Well, they replaced one of the actors. Not too happy about that. I understand that happens in soap operas, but so far they've been able to keep all the ones that are there.
Very nice. Yeah. James.
All right, so there is a new recording of Bach's Mass in B minor by the French ensemble Pygmalion. It's played on these period instruments. It's absolutely gorgeous. If you've never heard it, it's well worth your time. It is very long. It is sprawling, but there's such a warm intensity to the sound. And I've been listening on headphones, but I cannot wait to listen in a closed space with an awesome sound system. The Kyrie, the Crucifixus, it's so brisk. And also, shout out to the engineers and the mixers that make that happen, to be able to capture that warmth and intensity, in the studio and translate that into your ears. That's great work. I love that recording.
All right, so what caught my eye, this is kind of crazy. So this has been bubbling up since like April, but there was a good piece this week in Smithsonian Magazine about this. So back in 1937, Salvador Dali gets together with Groucho Marx, and he has this idea for a movie, which they actually sketch out kind of an outline for. They take it to MGM, and MGM is like, absolutely not. You guys are out of your minds. This is never going to happen. It was called Giraffes on Horseback Salad, just as you might imagine, something from Dali. And I love that Harpo Marx is involved with this. Anyway, AI is now taking a crack at this. So you can see the trailer on Netflix, and they're going to make the whole movie using AI, which is crazy.
Okay.
All right, so that's it for the Culture Show. Tune in Monday for writer Marianne Leone and poet Eric Andrande. Callie, actually, we don't have time. I got to just say things.
It's good.
Good. Listen to Under the Radar. Thanks to the BPL technical and logistics crew, Maddie Geyer, Bill Francis, Sandra Lopez-Berg, Juan Jose Cadena, Chris Hanks, Pat Lally, and Olivia Curcio. Thanks to Lennox and the Newsfeed Cafe. I'm Edgar B. Herwick III. Your mission, if you choose to accept it, is to have an impossibly dry weekend. Take care, everybody.
Where's Mary? Where is she? Where is she? She's just about to close up the library.
The Culture Show is made possible in part by a generous contribution from the Fiducia Fund, proud to support this station's arts and culture programming.
Spend your
Mozart's Night Music Serenade, the Philharmonia Octet.
Support for WCRB comes from you and Native Plant Trust, a source for pollinator-friendly plants, available at Garden in the Woods in Framingham. More at nativeplanttrust.org.
Classical Radio Boston is WCRB-FM 99.5 HD1 Lowell, Boston, WGBH-FM HD2 Boston, WCAI-FM HD2 Woods Hole, WJMF-FM Smithfield, Providence, and at classical.org.
Here's John Williams and the London Symphony.